The Shu family's mansion is ablaze with lights at night as wealthy guests gather at the gates. The elite of Long Country gather under the opulent chandeliers as the clan leader celebrates his golden anniversary. Security guards at the entrance carefully check invitations. A couple of people try to sneak in, but they are stopped and shamefully turned away, reminded that without an invitation, they cannot enter the party. The guards are chatting among themselves. There are too many people trying to sneak into the festivities today. The Shu family's wealth is drawing people like a magnet. They become wary and begin to watch the entrance more closely, afraid of missing another trickster who will try to trick his way into the mansion. Suddenly, one of the guards feels someone tugging at his pants leg. Looking down, he sees a tiny girl with a round face and serious eyes. The little girl introduces herself as Mei and assures him she's come to congratulate the master of the house. She says she's his paternal aunt and asks him to at least say something about her. The guards dismiss the child's words as a preposterous fabrication. They find it hard to believe that a girl who has barely learned to speak could be related to the head of a powerful clan. Mei stubbornly rummages through her small bag, trying to find proof of her words. But suddenly she is pushed sharply from behind. Lin Ming appears nearby with her son. She looks at the child with disdain and calls her a dirty beggar who has no place at the gate. Min warns the guards to be careful and not allow such children into the festivities. The guards meekly agree, eager to please their influential guest. Mei is indignant, as the woman doesn't belong to the Shu family at all. But Ming boasts that her sister will soon marry the clan's eldest son. Feeling superior, she declares that she has the right to decide who is worthy of entering the mansion and who should stand outside the gates. Her young son begins to tease the girl, repeating his mother's hurtful words. Mei restrains herself with all her might. Suddenly, the boy pushes her and tries to drive her away, but Mei unexpectedly bites his hand. He cries out in pain and calls for his mother. An angry Min rushes towards the girl and is about to hit her, demanding that the impudent little girl be immediately thrown out of the mansion. Just then, a young man appears at the gate, Sheng Fei, the seventh son of the Shu family. His unexpected appearance instantly silences everyone. He notices the commotion and turns his attention to the little girl who confidently waves her hand at him, as if she has known him for a long time. Mei announces that he is her grandnephew, as his father is Su Lingchen. Therefore, she is his eldest paternal aunt. Sheng Fei initially finds the child's words absurd, but the jade pendant in her hands turns out to be an exact replica of a family heirloom kept by his father. While he is pondering, Min tries to intervene and accuses the girl of lying, calling her crazy and dangerous. Sheng Fei coldly rebukes the woman. She hasn't yet become part of the Shu family and has no right to give him orders. Then he calmly picks Mei up. Ignoring Min's indignant looks, he walks with the girl into the mansion, leaving her seething with anger and humiliation. In the vast hall, guests immediately recognize the famous actor and heir to the Shu family. Many greet him with admiration and shower him with compliments. But there are also envious people among the crowd. They whisper that without his wealthy family, Sheng Fei would have been on the street long ago. Others begin to make dirty guesses, deciding that the girl in his arms is an illegitimate daughter, about whom scandalous rumors have recently circulated. Mei hears their whispers and decides to teach the gossips a lesson. Unnoticed, she uses magic, transforming a small object into a shining golden projectile. The enchanted talisman rises into the air and accurately hits one of the chatterboxes right in the forehead, leaving a painful bruise and burn on his face. The shocked man falls to the floor, not understanding what happened, and Mei smiles contentedly, considering her little punishment fair. Sheng Fei, oblivious to the true cause of the incident, is only touched by the child's courage and continues on his way to his father's office. Finally, he opens the door and meets the head of the family. The stern rich man immediately begins scolding his son for potentially causing another scandal. However, when Mei, an older man, appears, he is captivated by the little girl and forgets what he was talking about. He admires her beauty and calls her a true treasure. The girl calmly declares that she is not his granddaughter at all. She confidently introduces herself as Auntie Mei, winking mysteriously at the stunned adults. Lin Chong angrily scolds Sheng Fei, accusing him of being irresponsible. His son dropped out of school for show business, and now there is a child who can bring shame to the family on the holiday. Shengfei quickly defends himself. He swears he's never had relations with women and simply found the girl at the gate, where she claimed to be a family relative. He explains that the little girl had the same talisman as the head of the family, so he decided to bring her inside and sort things out personally. Lin Cheng picks up the jade amulet and examines it carefully. A childhood memory of accidentally breaking his grandfather's talisman comes to mind. The crack on the amulet runs precisely through the character for Su, in the same place as on the ancient family heirloom. The coincidence seems all too perfect. As the man reads the old letter, his face gradually changes. He begins to realize that the little girl's words might be true. Lin Cheng ponders the family's past and the strange story of the older generation's dream. If the little girl learns the truth, it will hurt her. Despite his doubts, he decides to take her under his protection. Even if she can't help the family, he will still take care of her. The man suddenly bows to the girl and respectfully greets her as the eldest aunt of the Su family. Mai Mei beams with joy and hands him an unusual gift, a strange root, which she says is part of the beard of the legendary master Jingshun. She explains that it is a special birthday gift and a symbol of family reunion, prepared especially for him. Then the girl notices a green bracelet on Lin Cheng's wrist and frowns sharply, as if she sensed something unpleasant. Mei Mei claims that the decoration is imbued with dark energy and is even made from human bones, which is why it causes insomnia to its owner. Lin Cheng is shocked by her words. He recalls that he has indeed been wearing the bracelet for 20 years and has long suffered from sleepless nights. He quickly takes off the jewelry and says that he received it as a gift from a friend of his eldest son, who assured him that the bracelet was consecrated by a great monk. Mai Mei calmly takes the dangerous item and hides it in her purse, declaring that it is not suitable for the Su family's home. Shengfei watches in amazement, but his father sharply reminds him of the rules. If the head of the family bows to the eldest aunt, the son must also show respect. Reluctantly but solemnly, Shengfei bows before the little girl and greets her as a respected aunt of the clan. A pleased Mei Mei gives him a small gift as well, calling him her dear grandnephew. Noticing that the girl is covered in dust after the journey, Shengfei suggests sending her to the maids so she can bathe and change her clothes. Mai Mei happily agrees and soon finds herself in a huge bathtub full of warm water, foam, and toy ducks. While she is splashing around happily, the girl accidentally inhales some foam and sneezes quietly, causing the servants to become alarmed. The family doctor is ready to run to help, but Mei Mei laughs and says that it is not a cold, but punishment for the bad words said about her. Lin Cheng is touched by her confidence and compares the baby to a celestial fairy, dreaming that future children in the family will be just as beautiful. Alice enters the room and respectfully greets her little aunt and bows before her. Mei Mei immediately gives her a gift too, a luxurious jade bracelet, so expensive that a similar one was recently sold for a huge sum. At first, Alice is taken aback by the surprise and doesn't know how to react to such a generous gift from a child. Mei Mei is ready to replace the gift, thinking that she didn't like it, but Alice quickly assures her that she really likes the decoration. She cautiously suggests keeping the jewel in the family vault until Mei Mei grows up and receives it as part of her dowry. After this, Alice takes the girl to the dressing room, where many luxurious dresses of all colors are stored. Mei Mei delightedly sorts through the outfits, trying them on one after another and twirling in front of the mirror in a bright blue dress. Alice smiles and compliments her on her taste, saying that she looks truly gorgeous in that dress. At this moment, the maid announces that the banquet has already begun, and all the guests are waiting for the family to appear in the main hall of the mansion. Alice picks up Mei Mei and leads her into the main hall, where guests and relatives of the Su family have already gathered. The girl looks around the luxurious room with curiosity. Alice quietly points to the man in the center and explains that he is the family's eldest grandson, Su Chenjin, the heir and chief manager of the clan's affairs. Since childhood, he adored money and possessed a rare talent for management, which is why he was entrusted with the financial affairs of the Su family's vast empire. However, looking at him closely, Mei Mei notices something strange. Her eldest grandson's face looks tense, as if his fate has changed. There is a beautiful woman standing next to him, and Mei Mei recognizes her. It was she, along with her sister, who recently humiliated the girl at the gates of the mansion. Alice explains that they are sisters from the Ling family, Ling Ming and Ling Ju. The eldest grandson unexpectedly decided to marry Ling Ju, although many are not happy about this decision. Lin Chong announces the start of the celebration and thanks the guests for coming to share his birthday with him. He then says that before the banquet begins, the family has some good news to share, hinting at an important announcement. Ling Ru steps forward, confident and solemn, about to announce her engagement to the eldest heir of the Su family. She thinks about her secret plan and remembers how her teacher helped her create a special amulet that could bind Qinjing's heart to her. In her opinion, the man is now completely under her control and nothing will stop her from entering the powerful Su family. But suddenly, Lin Ming's voice is heard, intervening in the conversation and starting to talk about the girl in Sheng Fei's arms. She hints that Mei Mei is supposedly Sheng Fei's illegitimate child and could ruin the family's reputation in the eyes of the guests. There is a noise in the hall. The guests whisper to each other, discussing the unexpected accusation. Lin Chong coldly asks who gave her the right to interfere in the family's affairs and spread such rumors. Lin Chong officially confirms her status and greets Mei Mei as the family's respected eldest aunt. The servants grab the woman and take her out, despite her protests and attempts to justify herself. Lin Ru tries to remain calm on the outside, but inside she is happy. Her spell is working, and Shenjin is still standing next to her. However, Mei Mei looks closely at her eldest grandson and feels that something is wrong with his destiny. She sees an invisible black thread connecting him to Lin Ju, and understands that this is an artificially created connection. Chenjing's true destiny must be connected by the red thread destined by heaven for true love. Mei Mei asks to put her on the floor and calls her eldest grandson closer, promising to deal with the strange magic later. Lin Chong, in order to stop the noise and arguments, announces that the celebration continues and thanks the guests for their patience. Music fills the hall again, and servants begin to serve dishes, opening a luxurious banquet. All the guests wait for the little aunt to start eating first, showing respect for her unexpectedly high status. Mei Mei happily tries the dishes one after another, sincerely admiring the taste and asking for more. The guests watch her with smiles, gradually relaxing and returning to the celebration. Meanwhile, Lin Ru notices that the engagement announcement never happened and begins to get nervous. She clearly understands that any delay could ruin her carefully crafted plan. All the steps she spent so long considering could crumble in an instant, altering the destiny she so persistently strived for. Halfway through the Kisi banquet, the lights suddenly go out, plunging the vast, opulent hall into pitch darkness. The guests begin to exchange confused glances and whisper, trying to figure out what caused this strange pause. After a few tense seconds, the spotlights flicker on again, concentrating a bright light directly in the center of the room. There, under the gaze of dozens of guests, stand Su Chenjin and Ling Ru, like the main figures of the upcoming announcement. The music changes to a solemn and majestic melody. The atmosphere instantly becomes serious, and the guests understand that an important announcement is about to be made, one that could change the family's situation. Chenjin looks strange and unfamiliar. His face is tense, his gaze is slightly clouded, and his movements seem constrained, as if some invisible force is pushing him against his will. Lin Ru, on the other hand, beams with confidence and a hidden triumph. She's convinced that her plan has been a complete success, and that today she will officially become part of the influential Su family. Mei Mei senses something wrong almost immediately. A heavy, distorted energy emanates from her eldest grandson, as if the very arc of his destiny had been forcibly redrawn by an alien force. A thin red thread of fate appears before her inner eye, but it is strangely intertwined with a black magical connection that seems to hold back and suppress its natural flow. The girl instantly leaps up from her chair and rushes across the room. Meanwhile, Shinjin slowly drops to one knee, preparing to pronounce the words of his proposal in front of all the guests. At the very last moment, Mei Mei reaches out and grabs the red thread of fate. Without thinking, she yanks it sharply, interfering with the course of events. The thread snaps with a loud crack, and thick, dark energy erupts from Chenjing's body. The evil spirit that had been hiding within him all this time manifests before the guest's eyes. Lingru, furious, tries to push Mei Mei away and reach her, but Sheng Fei instantly intercepts her hand. He holds her tightly, preventing her from getting close to the child. Meanwhile, Mei Mei catches the escaped spirit and holds it despite its attempts to break free. Frightened, the spirit confesses that it was Lin Ru who forced him to possess Qinjing in order to bind the man to herself. When Qinjin wakes up, he becomes enraged and realizes that he has been under someone else's control all this time. He orders the servants to immediately take Lin Ru out of the hall and announces that everything is over between them. Mai Mei places a magical seal on the captured spirit and seals it away so that it can never harm people again. After this, the tension gradually subsides, and the guests return to their tables, discussing the incredible incident. Qianjin thanks Mei Mei for her help, and the banquet continues, although everyone still whispers about what happened. After the celebration, the entire family gathers in a separate room. Mei Mei is seated in the center and carefully treated to the best dishes, as if trying to smooth over past misunderstandings. Lin Chong watches her with deep thought. The letter clearly stated that his aunt's return was forbidden, and this troubles him more than the recent incident with the spirit. He understands that Mei Mei's arrival could change the balance of power within the family and stir up ancient secrets that the Su clan would prefer to leave in the past. Junjun, still shaken, looks at his little aunt with new respect. The realization of his escape from an imposed fate makes him feel gratitude and relief for the first time. Under the soft glow of the lamps, the family silently reflects on what has happened. Mai Mei's calm facade conceals a power capable of influencing destinies, and her return has already begun to rewrite the future of the Su clan. Sheng Fei is in no hurry to let Mei Mei go, and comes up with a pretext to detain her. He hints that strange things are happening in his son's house, and asks the girl to help deal with the ghosts. Chen Shu and Ling Chong immediately understand his plan and support the story. They explain that in recent days, frightening events have been constantly occurring in the house. They say the boys are already starting to be afraid to return home, and without Mei Mei's help, the situation could get even worse. Lin Chun adds that if the girl leaves, she and her brother simply won't dare to spend the night in the house again. Mei Mei listens attentively, and after a short thought, agrees to check first if there are spirits there. She takes a small spirit compass out of her purse. Its needle begins to slowly rotate, indicating the direction. The girl jumps off the chair and confidently walks forward, looking around carefully, as if trying to spot hidden spirits. Everyone follows her, watching as she intently searches for the slightest sign of the presence of the otherworldly. Suddenly, Mei Mei stops, rubs her eyes tiredly, and begins to sway. Drowsiness overtakes her too suddenly. A moment later, she almost falls, but the adults manage to catch her and carefully carry her into the room. The girl is placed on a small bed, where she falls asleep almost immediately, plunging into a deep sleep. Alice quietly strokes her head and wonders what will happen if Mei Mei one day finds out the truth about her parents. Meanwhile, the girl begins to move restlessly in her sleep, as if experiencing a difficult memory. Her face crumples, and soon she begins to cry quietly, without waking up. Lin Chong watches this in confusion, at a loss as to how to help the child. In her dream, Mei Mei finds herself next to her parents, who lie motionless, as if immersed in a long sleep. She desperately tries to wake them, calling and shaking them, Ani, hoping to bring them back to life. My mother's words about the sacred monument of the Yan clan, an ancient family treasure, resurface in my memory. My mother once told me that its symbols concealed a secret that could change my destiny. In desperation, Mei Mei turns to the monument's power, hoping that it can save her parents. At that moment, the soft images of her father and mother appear before her, as if they had come from another world. They explain that they have not disappeared forever and are merely in a long sleep, awaiting the right time. To one day awaken them, Mei Mei must collect points of faith and virtue by helping people and doing good deeds. Once her merits accumulate, the power of the sacred monument will be able to bring her parents back to life. The parents ask their daughter to live peacefully in her relative's home and not to be too stubborn. Mei Mei can't hold back her tears, because the most important thing for her is to see her parents again. Their images gradually begin to fade, leaving the girl alone in the silence of sleep. She desperately reaches out to them, but soon wakes up abruptly, breathing heavily and looking around. The adults immediately notice her condition and try to understand what happened. Mei Mei talks about the need to collect points of faith and virtue in order to one day wake up her parents. After this, she takes out a small turtle from her purse, which comes to life and begins to slowly crawl forward. According to her, the turtle shows the way to people who need help, and it is through such actions that the day of the parents' awakening can be brought closer. Shenfei accepts an offer to appear on a reality show about everyday life with children. He hopes to use the project as a chance to regain his popularity and improve his reputation with viewers after recent setbacks. To make the program more interesting, he asks Mei Mei to come with him and participate in a children's segment. He hopes their everyday life together will attract the public's attention. Lin Chun strongly objects to this idea. He believes the girl has only recently returned home and shouldn't be going on a shoot with such a dubious man. However, Mei Mei unexpectedly agrees to participate. She calmly declares that she will try to look good on screen and help the show, much to everyone's surprise. Lin Chun decides to support her and offers the family to invest money in a project to increase Mei Mei's popularity and make her famous. Chenju is more cautious about this. He notes that if popularity is built solely on investment, viewers could quickly lose interest. As a result, the relatives decide not to intervene too actively for now and simply observe how the situation develops. The long-awaited reality show begins broadcasting in a week. The host starts the live broadcast and informs viewers that today they'll be showing the morning life of a celebrity. She promises the audience a surprise and heads with the camera to Shenfei's room to find him in his normal home environment. Viewers are actively commenting, expecting to see the celebrity's day start off bright. The camera opens the door to the room. However, what emerges inside is a completely unexpected sight. Shenfei is still fast asleep, unaware that filming is already underway. Mei Mei sleeps nearby on the bed, hugging a stuffed teddy bear. The scene immediately sparks a heated reaction in the comments. Many viewers are beginning to get upset, believing that Shenfei is not taking the show seriously and is even dragging the child into a potential stream of criticism. Alice and Lin Chun are also watching the morning broadcast. Seeing what's happening, Alice realizes the situation could quickly spiral out of control. She decides to intervene and heads into the room to gently wake up the participants of the filming and save the beginning of the broadcast. Alice quietly wakes up Mei Mei, trying not to scare the girl or create unnecessary fuss in front of the cameras. Mei Mei wakes up calm and greets us warmly, instantly captivating viewers. The comment stream grows even more active. When Alice is about to wake Shenfei, Mei Mei stops her and quietly explains that a spirit came to them during the night and frightened her eldest grandson. According to her, she had already dealt with the spirit, so Shenfei was simply very tired and needed to rest for a while. However, time is running out as the film crew is about to head to the main set. Alice decides to wake Shenfei up anyway. When he finally wakes up and notices the cameras pointed at him, he immediately tries to act cheerful and greet the viewers. But in the comments, viewers begin to mock his awkward behavior. Shenfei greets Mei Mei with a smile and kindly pats her head, creating a cozy atmosphere in front of the cameras and the audience of the show. Mei Mei recalls the morning routine, counting it off on her fingers. First, wash your face, brush your teeth, then breakfast in the car, and then a plane flight for filming. Shenfei supports her plan, lifts the girl onto his neck, and goes to the bathroom with her, continuing to act casually in front of the cameras. Mei Mei stands on the stool, puts on the bandage, and takes a small toothbrush, carefully applying the toothpaste that Shenfei gives her. The girl smiles and pats Shenfei on the head, emphasizing her sense of care and leadership in their morning ritual. They brush their teeth and wash their faces together, causing a wave of affection among viewers, who actively comment on their behavior live on air. When it comes to facial treatment, Shenfei begins to apply cream to Mei Mei's face, who looks on in thought for a moment. Lin Chong appears and notices the use of the cream, believing the girl and Shenfei to be breaking the rules, causing a brief argument between the adults. Shenfei reminds him that they are filming and asks for a little patience, explaining that he simply mixed up the skincare products. Mei Mei, observing the dispute, declares herself the fairest and decides that the cream should be used by the one who bought it, thereby ending the conflict. The film crew announces the start of the question and answer session, and the girl, along with Shenfei, descends the stairs to the interview area, preparing for new shots. Shenfei whispers to Meimei that she looks charming despite the negative comments from online viewers trying to tease them. The journalist asks about the family relationship between Meimei and Shenfei, to which the girl calmly explains that he is her seventh grandson, and she is his little aunt. The reporter asks for proof and the opportunity to speak with Meimei's parents, which upsets the girl, causing her to cry in remembrance. Meimei holds back her emotions as she tries to explain the situation, mentioning that her parents are currently sleeping and unable to communicate, but promises that they will be able to talk after the mission is completed. The interview concludes with viewers discussing touching moments and admiring the girl's behavior, noting her innocence and determination. Meimei asked the reporter to call his son so that he does not leave the house first, showing care and responsibility. The reporter is surprised because his son is only 4 years old and does not have a phone, which creates confusion among the adults. The girl suggests calling the reporter's wife, explaining that she doesn't want any trouble to happen and that she cares about everyone involved. The director supports the initiative, and the call is made when the wife says that she is taking the child to classes, and the sudden shouts and noise from the phone cause confusion in the reporter, who ends the conversation. The call sent a wave of alarm through the studio, but soon the reporter's wife reported that she was only indirectly involved in the accident. The delay allowed her to slow down and avoid a collision that could have hit her and her child. The screen showed the wrecked cars. It became clear that if the mother and son had exited earlier, they would have been directly in the path of the impact. The film crew realized the seriousness of the incident. The reporter paled, imagining the possible outcome. He admitted that without the unexpected call, he wouldn't have been able to forgive himself for what had happened if the family had suffered. Meimei listened calmly to the thanks and remarked that kindness always comes back. She reminded the operator of an incident 3 days earlier when he had saved a schoolboy from being hit by a motorcycle. The man recalled that episode and understood the connection. A random act had led to a successful warning. He felt gratitude and a slight awe for the girl. Shengfei tried to turn it into a joke, explaining that his aunt was simply embarrassed by the praise. Meimei patted him on the head solemnly, accepting the compliments with dignity. The live broadcast quickly gained popularity. Viewership exceeded 3 million, and the project team decided to capitalize on the wave of interest. The producers suggested continuing the broadcast and engaging with the audience, making the girl's abilities the central theme of the broadcast. Meimei explained that fortune-telling isn't done randomly. There must be a connection between people, and a price is always charged for revealing one's destiny. She clarified that sometimes the payment is expressed not in money, but in the trials experienced or good deeds performed, as in the case of the operator. The girl reflected on the accumulation of merit, recalling her parents' words about the need to accumulate faith and virtue in order to awaken them. A transparent vessel of water appeared in her hands, symbolizing her accumulated power. The higher the liquid level rose, the closer she seemed to achieving her goal. Meimei felt she was approaching an important milestone. The smile on her face grew confident, and her gaze became more focused. She showed the audience small coins, explaining that only 2 predictions were possible during today's broadcast, each with a set symbolic price. Some of the coins accidentally scattered across the floor, which added liveliness to the scene and sparked a new wave of comments. The operator asked how to identify suitable participants. The girl replied that signs of fate would point to the right people. She hinted that some of the observers already feel this connection and understand what is being discussed. The producer decided to test her words and suggested randomly selecting 2 viewers via a live broadcast platform. The assistant quickly displayed several names on the screen, waiting for Meimei's decision. The girl looked closely at the screen and pointed her finger at the 2 chosen participants, confidently accepting the next challenge of fate. Meimei, holding her phone, notices a flood of negative comments demanding Shengfei leave the entertainment industry. The girl genuinely doesn't understand why viewers are angry and consider his actions disrespectful. Shengfei gently distracts her, asking her not to read the messages. Meimei quickly agrees and smiles again, trying to maintain the lighthearted atmosphere of the live broadcast. The first participant joins the broadcast and asks to submit her date of birth for calculations. Mei Mei explains that this isn't required and asks her to formulate her question first. The girl on the other side of the screen talks about a missing cat, which she's been searching for a month without success. She posted flyers and went around to neighbors, but found no trace. Mei Mei concentrates and points out that the animal is in the third house to the left of her own. She advises talking to the neighbors again. The cat's owner goes to the address provided and is again refused. The owner of the house angrily insists that she doesn't have someone else's pet. Then the girl remembers Mei Mei's advice to protect her rights and is going to call the police to officially check the situation. After mentioning the police, the elderly neighbor changes her tone. She admits that she does indeed have the cat, explaining that her grandson wanted to play with the animal. The woman returns the cat, and the screen shows the joyful owner clutching her pet to her chest. The chat erupts in delight and surprise. The success of the first prediction strengthens the audience's trust. Mei Mei calmly accepts the gratitude, as if such outcomes were natural to her. The second video call begins. An adult woman with a worried expression and a complicated family history joins the broadcast. She accuses her relative of slander and claims that she became a victim of unfair rumors that destroyed her relationships with loved ones. Mei Mei listens attentively and asks several clarifying questions, trying to understand the true cause of the conflict. It gradually becomes clear that the quarrel is rooted in an old misunderstanding related to an inheritance and a long-standing grievance. The girl gently points out the contradictions in the woman's words, hinting that some of the accusations may have been hasty. Off camera, the indignant voice of the participant's mother is heard demanding an explanation and the truth about what happened. Under pressure from the facts, the woman begins to waver and admits that she did not verify the information before accusing her relatives. She suddenly remembers her brother, with whom she has not spoken for a long time, and realizes that the conflict arose from a misunderstanding. The broadcast ends with her tears of remorse and a promise to reconnect with her family, and viewers discuss Mei Mei's ability to see the root of the problem. Shenfei watches the proceedings with growing respect, realizing that the girl's involvement changes not only his reputation, but also the destinies of others. The focus wasn't on Qintao himself, but on his brother. His appearance sparked discussion, as the recent scandal hadn't yet died down, and viewers were closely monitoring the family's every move. Mei Mei's brother greeted her and politely asked if she was indeed Qingchao's aunt. Shengfei explained that they had already broadcast live and dispelled the rumors about her illegitimate daughter. The misunderstanding was cleared up, and the atmosphere softened. Qingchao acknowledged his misjudgment and expressed respect for the situation. The family prepared a gift for Mei Mei, emphasizing their affection. The girl accepted it with a smile and, in return, presented her with a wooden figurine, warning her to take good care of it. Some viewers questioned the value of a simple piece of wood, but Mei Mei confidently declared that the item was rare and had special meaning. She pulled out a second figurine and demonstrated how to use it to assemble a bird shape. The structure suddenly came to life, causing amazement among those around her. The girl noted that the effect would be even more interesting if there was water, hinting at the hidden properties of the toy that not everyone understands. Shengfei jokingly asked why his aunt hadn't given him such a toy before. Mei Mei explained that it was a talisman and not suitable for everyone. He feigned disappointment and looked like he was about to cry. The girl immediately became concerned and gave him her figurine. Having gotten what he wanted, Shengfei stopped pretending to cry, which surprised Mei Mei. She realized he had outsmarted her. Despite this, she gently reminded that deception is not the best way to get gifts, especially in front of the camera. Shengfei tried to justify himself, claiming that without the toy, he would really be upset. But there was a playful tone to his words. Mei Mei looked at him carefully and called him closer to have a serious talk without making any unnecessary noise. She sat down next to him and explained that good children don't use lies for gain, even if it seems like a harmless joke. Shengfei smiled awkwardly, feeling that the moralizing was spoken sincerely and without malice. At that moment, Mei Mei noticed a strange phenomenon. On her special internal screen, Chen Tiao's bracelet began to glow red. Only she saw this light, and it meant a decrease in accumulated merits after an unscrupulous act. She decided to pay closer attention to the actions of those around her, as her own mission to collect merits became more and more serious. Qintao noticed Sister Hui's arrival and hastened to greet her, introducing her as the famous actress Yu Yu. The atmosphere instantly changed, and the guests' attention shifted to the new figure. Mei Mei noticed that her grandson had shown no politeness. She gently rebuked him, reminding him of the proper etiquette when meeting his elders. Sheng Fei responded coldly, explaining that he didn't want to show friendliness if he might receive indifference in return. His words were harsh. Sister Hui didn't want to escalate the situation and leaned toward Mei Mei. She noted the girl's kind features and asked her name. Mei Mei introduced herself as Su Mei Mei and, as a sign of their first acquaintance, took out 2 neat bracelets from her purse, offering them as a symbol of a good meeting. The woman was surprised by the mention of grandson, asking if the girl was referring to Sheng Fei. An acquaintance of Qing Chao's intervened, estimating the jewelry's value at a considerable sum. A Hao also presented a gift to Yu Yu's sister, emphasizing the family's respect. The exchange of gifts gave the meeting a formal and warm tone. The woman explained that she had brought her daughter in the hopes that she would befriend Mei Mei. The girl's name was Yu Yu, and the similarity of their names immediately amused Mei Mei. Mei Mei perked up and sat down next to Yu Yu, pulling out delicate butterfly-shaped jewelry from her bag. She spoke confidently of the craftsmanship of their creation. Yu Yu admired the fine workmanship, and her mother proudly noted her daughter's good taste. The atmosphere gradually warmed. Without hesitation, Mei Mei gave one of Yu Yu's butterflies as a gift, declaring that she had plenty of such ornaments. The girl's generosity amazed the adults. Yu Yu's mother was hesitant at first, but seeing his sincerity, she agreed to accept the gift, promising to reciprocate later. Mei Mei suggested they wear the jewelry together, pulling out a second pair, a soft pink one. The girls smiled, examining the colors. Mom reminded her daughter not to be greedy, but Mei Mei suggested dividing the jewelry so that each person could get their favorite color. Yu Yu agreed, and the awkwardness finally disappeared. The girls began to see each other as friends. Mei Mei ran to Sheng Fei, asking for help securing the pin. He carefully put it on, trying to appear unperturbed. However, as soon as he took Mei Mei's hand, she broke away and returned to Yu Yu, declaring that she would now play with her. Sheng Fei feigned indignation at being abandoned. There was a hint of jealousy in his voice. Mei Mei just laughed, confidently leading Yu Yu away, as if cementing a new friendship and opening another thread in her network of good connections. The live broadcast continued even at the airport, and then on board the plane. The show's participants took their seats, trying to maintain a friendly atmosphere in front of the cameras. Mei Mei sat next to Yu Yu, thoughtfully offering her a seat by the window. The girls excitedly took photos, sparking a wave of affectionate comments in the chat. Sheng Fei tried to intervene in their conversation, but was gently rebuffed. Yu Yu was clearly drawn to her new friend, not him. Seeing this, one of the adults suggested moving Sheng Fei to the girls, noticing that he was ready to burst into tears from resentment. Mei Mei, looking serious, allowed him to join in. Yu Yu agreed, and her mother moved to the next chair, watching the proceedings intently. The woman wondered why her previously warm relationship with Sheng Fei had changed so much. They had once worked together, and he had seemed diligent and open. Later, rumors and scandals emerged around him, which undermined trust. She couldn't tell the truth from exaggeration. During the flight, Chen Tao was also nearby, his gaze intense and appraising, as if waiting for the right moment. Meanwhile, Mei Mei had settled comfortably next to Sheng Fei and Yu Yu. The girls gradually dozed off, their heads resting on his shoulders. The photo sparked a flood of positive comments. Even Hui's sister acknowledged that Sheng Fei seemed genuinely caring at the moment. Chen Tao watched with hidden irritation. He was certain that another conflict would inevitably erupt upon arrival at the site. After landing, everyone was transferred to a bus. The host announced that another participant from an ordinary family would be joining the show. At the bus stop, a boy's cry was heard. He resisted his mother and did not want to take part in the filming, demanding to return to his grandmother. The woman tried to persuade him, promising a fun group of children. The boy suddenly noticed Mei Mei and turned his attention to her. He reached for her butterfly clip without asking permission and yanked it sharply. Mei Mei screamed in pain and the sudden hot flash in the jewelry. Tears welled up in her eyes. The boy defiantly declared that he would take the butterfly, daring her to respond. His behavior seemed rude and deliberately aggressive. At this moment, Shengfei stepped forward, shielding Mei Mei and sternly demanding an apology for disrespecting his little aunt. The boy's mother, noticing what's happening, quickly rushes onto the bus. She immediately runs to her son, who is trying to escape Shengfei's grasp. The woman is initially outraged, but then notices the cameras and realizes everything is happening in full view of onlookers, so she decides to proceed with caution. She introduces herself as Xu Weiwei and begins speaking confidently, implying that conflicts between children are commonplace. She believes adults shouldn't intervene as roughly as Shengfei did, grabbing the child by the collar. The woman pretends to try to resolve the situation peacefully. She suggests letting the boy go so he can simply apologize to the girl, and that would resolve the conflict. Shengfei listens to her and senses that her calm words are masking an attempt to pressure him in front of the cameras. He notices Yan Yan comforting a crying Mei Mei, and irritation wells up inside him. He insists the boy should apologize first. He says the child behaved rudely and clearly didn't receive a proper upbringing. At that moment, Shengfei's acquaintance, actor Qin Tao, appears nearby. He quietly advises him to let go of the boy, explaining that holding a child by the collar like that could choke him. His words sound reasonable, but the audience gets the feeling that there may be some calculation behind this advice. A debate erupts in the comments. Some believe children should sort this out for themselves, while others are convinced the boy has clearly crossed the line. Shengfei eventually lets the boy go. He demands that he apologize to Mei Mei for pulling her hair. While the adults argue, Shengfei tries to calm Mei Mei down. The girl continues to cry, and a clump of torn hair remains in her hand. Viewers on the live broadcast are shocked by what they see. Many are outraged by the boy's cruelty and worried about Mei Mei. Some are worried that the girl will be left with a bald spot on her head. Mei Mei, through tears, asks if she'll go bald. They try to reassure her, telling her that her hair will definitely grow back. Meanwhile, the boy stubbornly covers his ears and refuses to apologize. Furthermore, he begins teasing Mei Mei, calling her ugly. The girl immediately objects and demands an apology. She says that if he doesn't admit his guilt, her mother will definitely stand up for her. The boy's mother tries to intervene again. She claims her son didn't mean to cause harm and offers to make amends. However, Mei Mei categorically rejects an apology from an adult. In her opinion, the one who committed the offense should apologize. The woman loses patience and begins to persuade her son to apologize, but he only stubbornly declares that he is not going to do so. In the comments, viewers begin to discuss the boy's behavior, noting that he appears spoiled and is completely incapable of admitting his mistakes. At some point, his mother angrily declares that she is no longer going to interfere and let the children sort things out themselves. Having received this permission, Mei Mei decides to take action on her own. She clenches her fists and resolutely approaches the boy. The girl grabs him by the hair and yanks it sharply, tearing out a small tuft. The boy is shocked by the pain and doesn't believe that she actually responded in kind. Mei Mei calmly shows him the hair she pulled out and compares it to the amount he pulled out from her. In her opinion, they are now even and justice has been restored. The boy begins to cry loudly and scream, not hiding his resentment. Mei Mei becomes even more irritated and warns that if he continues to yell and behave like this, she will fight him again. The boy continues to cry loudly and complain, unable to understand why he was treated this way. He becomes indignant, sobbing, and tries to argue. But Mei Mei suddenly takes a deep breath and screams back at the top of her lungs. Her voice is so loud and piercing that the boy freezes for a moment. He clutches his ears and looks at the girl in confusion, as if he hadn't expected such an answer. The boy tries to complain again, saying he's being treated unfairly, but Mei Mei doesn't back down. She continues to speak loudly and confidently, demonstrating that she too knows how to defend herself. Her behavior gradually confuses the boy. He no longer screams as loudly, but only sobs quietly, realizing that arguing is no longer working. Mei Mei explains that if someone treats her badly, she can respond in kind. If someone tries to hurt her or anger her, she won't simply tolerate it. At some point, the girl suddenly realizes that a lot of people have gathered around, and everything that is happening is being watched by cameras and adults. Realizing this, she immediately becomes embarrassed. She feels awkward about shouting so loudly in front of everyone. Mei quickly turns to those around her and bows politely, sincerely apologizing for the noise and disturbance. The adults react to this with a smile. They say everything is fine, since she is the eldest in the family and was simply scolding the younger child. One of the mothers watching the scene is surprised by the volume of the children's voices. She recalls being told at kindergarten that her own daughter was too quiet. Compared to this, Mei and the boy seem incredibly energetic and even a little surprising to her. Qintao smiles, noting that Mei handled the situation in her own way. He believes that even though she screamed, the boy eventually stopped crying. Shenfei also proudly notes that such determination is quite consistent with his little aunt's character. The film crew continues to work, and the cameraman tries to calm Mei, explaining that such scenes are part of their job. The girl breathes a sigh of relief and gradually returns to her usual calm mood. She turns to the boy again and offers to show him the little butterflies if he wants to see something beautiful. The boy freezes for a second, surprised by her kindness, but quickly turns away and runs to his mother, hiding behind her dress. Meanwhile, the film crew announces that the last pair of participants has arrived. A man and a boy, very similar to each other, board the bus. They introduce themselves and take their places among the other participants. After a short preparation, the host announces that it is time to move on, but the bus only has 2 seats for an adult and a child. Because of this, Mei and Yu have to sit separately. The girl is a little upset, as she's used to sitting next to her. Mei calmly explains that there used to be more seats on the plane, so they could sit with the adults. She gently comforts Yu and promises that once they get off the bus, they will play together again. Yu is a little sad, but he still agrees and obediently sits down. Mei praises him for his obedience and kisses him on the cheek as a parting gesture of encouragement. Shenfei, watching this from the side, felt strangely offended, as if lightning had struck his heart, because the little ant clearly paid more attention to the other children than to him. Mei is once again the center of attention on the film crew. One of the cast members jokingly leans toward her and asks for a kiss from Little Auntie. The girl is embarrassed, but she gives him a light kiss on the cheek anyway, sparking a storm of jokes and comments about how cute she is. The show's crew brings the contestants to the start of a new task, hands them a map, and suddenly leaves. The bus can't reach the filming location, so everyone has to walk. Luggage will be delivered separately, BC, and the contestants are told to hurry if they want to make it in time for dinner. When the adults try to decipher the map, they discover it's drawn very strangely and is almost incomprehensible. The lines and arrows appear chaotic, and Qintao irritably remarks that such a plan is impossible to understand. While the adults argue, Mei carefully examines the map and calmly explains the proposed route. She points out the direction and explains how to navigate through several points to reach the finish line. Qintao doesn't trust the child's words and suggests analyzing the map himself. However, some participants are confident that the girl has truly figured it out and suggest trying to follow her instructions. The participants eventually split into 2 groups. Qintao leads one team along his route, while the other team decides to follow Mei. They agree to meet at the end of the mission. Mei's team walks through a village and soon spots an old man with a basket full of squeaking chicks. The children immediately perk up and begin to watch the little chicks with interest. One of the chicks accidentally falls out of the basket and Mei quickly catches it, carefully holding it in her palms. The old man watches with a smile and notes how the chicks seem to be drawn to the girl. The children ask permission to pet the chicks, and the old man allows them to do so. The chicks sit calmly in Mei's arms, as if they sense her care and are unafraid. The touched old man offers to give them some chicks. The adults are hesitant at first, as it would be difficult to care for the birds during filming. Mei decides to thank the old man and gives him a small bag of pills. She tells him that if he feels ill, he should take the medicine. The old man accepts the gift, thinking it might just be candy, but he's touched by the girl's sincerity. He ends up giving the children a whole basket of chickens. The participants are confused, as they have no room to carry so many chicks. Then one of the older children brings a basket and helps them place them. Mei thanks him for his help, and the boy is visibly embarrassed by her sincere words. The others joke that because of her kindness, they will now have to continue on their journey with an entire army of chickens. The journey continues, and the atmosphere becomes much warmer and more cheerful. Even those who had doubts begin to think that following Mei was the right decision. Gradually, it becomes clear that the girl's chosen path is indeed leading in the right direction. Her confidence and composure begin to inspire confidence in the entire group. Thus, a simple task on the show turns into a small adventure, where Mei becomes the person around whom the other participants rally. On the road between the village houses, one of the boys suddenly ran to a notice post and tore off two brightly colored sheets of paper. The others didn't understand his actions at first, but soon he deftly folded the papers into a neat basket for carrying the chickens. The homemade basket turned out to be very handy. Mei carefully placed several yellow chicks in it, and they began to squeak softly. The children immediately perked up, realizing they could have made something similar themselves if they'd thought of it earlier. Some of the boys felt a slight annoyance. They thought the boy had deliberately shown his resourcefulness to gain the little woman's attention. One of the older boys merely snorted and decided not to engage in the childish rivalry. The team continued along the narrow road. Mei again carefully studied the strange map with its arrows and scribbles. After a while, she confidently declared that there must be another important place ahead. The road led the group to a small house with a wooden gate. The girl approached the door first and knocked. A few seconds later, a man opened the door, his son standing next to him. The owner of the house laughed when he learned about the map. It turned out that his son had drawn it for the assignment. The man admitted he hadn't expected anyone to actually understand these strange drawings. Since the children had managed to get to his house safely, the man offered to help them. He decided to give them a ride to the filming location so they wouldn't waste time on the long drive through the village. An old wagon filled with dry hay stood in the yard. The children joyfully ran to the truck and climbed into the back. The soft hay crunched underfoot, and the air was filled with the scent of grass. Mei and Yu gazed with delight at the unusual vehicle. For them, riding in such a van felt like a real adventure, as if they were setting off on a mini-trip. One of the mothers had trouble climbing into the back of the truck. Shengfei calmly offered her a hand. The mother smiled gratefully while the children settled into the hay. Once everyone was settled, the van slowly pulled away. The road was uneven, and the van bounced over the bumps. This only added to the fun, and the children laughed at the unexpected jolt. Mei watched the road and thought that this ride was even more interesting than the fairy tale flights on the flying sword. To her, the whole thing felt like a real adventure. After a while, familiar figures appeared ahead. The second team was standing on the road, looking tired and a little confused after their long search. Seeing the van, one of the women asked for a ride. However, the driver reminded them of the rules of the task. Help was only allowed to those participants who could find his house on the map. The van continued on its way, leaving the second group behind. The children looked back for a long time, realizing that their good fortune was largely due to their trust in Mei. By evening, the team reached the village, where dinner and rest awaited them after the day's filming. The children were so tired they could barely stand. During dinner, Mei dozed off at the table, but the aroma of roasting chicken quickly awakened her. The girl immediately perked up and began eating with gusto, much to the amusement of those around her. The cameraman announced that filming was complete for the day. After eating, everyone was allowed to rest and go to their rooms to recuperate before the next assignment. One of the boys found himself in the room with his younger brother. He spent a long time examining the bracelet on his wrist, which he had previously considered a special talisman. Not noticing any unusual properties, he felt irritated. Taking the wooden doll Mei had given him, he decided to use it as leverage against his younger brother, demanding his help in the following day's task. The morning in the village begins quietly. Mei wakes up before the others after a restless sleep. The girl feels slightly tired and notices her stomach rumble with hunger. The loud snoring of the sleeping adults can still be heard in the room. She carefully looks around and realizes that no one is getting up yet. After some thought, Mei decides to look for food herself and begins quietly rummaging through her suitcase. After a long search, the girl finds a packet of formula. She carefully pours the powder into a bottle and attempts to make her own milk, just like adults do. However, there's no hot water nearby. Mei Mei looks around for a long time, hoping to find a thermos or a kettle, but there's nothing suitable in the room. Then the girl goes outside and notices two cameramen. She approaches them and asks them to help her prepare milk. The operators smile and ask if the little girl is hungry. The girl honestly admits she's very hungry and decided to make some milk. At this point, the director intervenes. He explains that, according to the rules of the show, all prepared food will be put away today, and the participants must find their own breakfast. Mei Mei is surprised by this requirement. She's already poured the formula into the bottle and thinks it would be wrong to simply throw it away. The girl calmly says that food shouldn't be wasted. She suggests at least finishing the already prepared mixture, otherwise it will go to waste. The film crew is amazed by her common sense. Even as a small child, Mei Mei thinks about the importance of not throwing away food without reason. Despite her words, the operators are still forced to adhere to the program's rules. They take the bottle and decide to keep it until the other participants wake up. Mei Mei sighs but doesn't argue. She just quietly strokes her belly and patiently waits for the opportunity to have breakfast. The girl returns to the room and begins waking the sleeping adults. She actively shakes one of the adults, trying to get him to wake up. The man opens his eyes with difficulty and smiles at first, seeing a sleepy Mei Mei before him. However, the girl immediately reminds him to wash and tidy himself up. After this, everyone begins preparing for the new day. Participants change clothes and head out into the courtyard, where the other teams are already assembled. Shengfei greets his friend Cheng Tao. It's clear from his face that he's had a rough night and barely slept. Cheng Tao explains that he was too tired after the previous day and fell into a deep sleep. He remembers almost nothing of what happened that night. He then leans down to greet little Mei Mei. He tries to speak softly and kindly, hoping to make a good impression on her. However, the girl looks at him rather calmly and without much interest. This indifference slightly unsettles the man. Cheng Tao begins to worry that he hasn't managed to impress his little aunt. He even wonders if he looks too awkward in front of the cameras and the other contestants. In the morning, he notices that his voice has become hoarse and completely different from before. Previously, he could stay up all night, drink, and smoke, but his voice would still remain deep and confident. Now, however, the sound seems strange and unpleasant. He decides to chalk it up to a cold. He says yesterday's fatigue and cold could have affected his throat. At that moment, his younger brother suddenly sneezes, as if confirming that the illness might indeed have appeared. Cheng Tao concludes that his brother may have caught the cold as well. He plans to contact the crew to request medication to prevent his condition from worsening. Cheng Tao's friend perceives the conversation differently. He feels it all sounds like an attempt to emphasize his own voice and look better than everyone else. This makes him feel irritated. Without showing any emotion, he turns and leaves with his brother, determined to search for a cure. The remaining participants continue preparing for the next mission. Mei Mei watches the events closely. She suspects that dark spirit energy may be involved, but she also understands that Cheng Tao remains an ordinary child. The girl begins to think about her younger brother, Cheng Hao. She finds it unfair that he should suffer because of someone else's actions. She ponders the best course of action in this situation. Shenfei notices Mei Mei's serious expression and inquires about her condition. The girl quickly notices the camera and decides not to discuss her thoughts in front of the camera crew. She decides it's best to discuss such issues later with her loved ones when there are no cameras nearby. Afterward, everyone gathers on the set for the next stage of the program. The host announces the breakfast rules. To receive food, participants must first draw cards with morning tasks. The order of selection will be determined by the adults playing rock, paper, scissors. Mei Mei feels a little uneasy. She feels like luck has rarely been on her side before, especially when it comes to variety shows and random challenges. However, her team believes in the little aunt's luck. Shengfei even lifts Mei Mei into her arms and confidently says that together they will definitely succeed. The adults' game ends badly for their team. They finish last and are awarded the right to draw a card last. Shengfei tries not to show her disappointment, but she worries that the task might be difficult and cause Mei Mei unnecessary difficulties. Mei Mei tries to reassure him. She's confident that there are no bad assignments and that luck might still be on their side. The remaining teams take turns drawing cards. Some get to feed the chickens at the entrance to the village, others get to play with a local child, others get to help with the corn or pick watermelons. When the Shengfei team's turn comes, they are given an unusual task. They need to help a farmer deliver piglets from a sow about to give birth. Shengfei tries to appear calm and says that he will handle the task himself, and Mei can simply observe from the sidelines without participating directly. On the way to the farmer's house, they encounter an elderly woman. She notices that the girl hasn't eaten yet and treats them to hot steamed buns. Mei gratefully accepts the treat and begins to eat with gusto, while Chengtao watches angrily nearby, annoyed that the treat isn't his. Qintao helps his younger brother walk to Li Yuan's house. The boy is frightened, cries, and resists, but gradually calms down with his older brother's support. Online commentators note that the artist is acting sternly and even intimidating his brother, but some suspect envy of Shengfei. Upon arriving at Li Gao's house, Qintao explains to his brother that food and breakfast await them, trying to cheer him up with a smile. The man greets them and invites them to the table. At first glance, there's little food, just some pickles, but Mei hurries to arrange the rest. The girl demonstrates unusual strength by carrying a heavy table for guests and arranging chairs, surprising everyone around. Shengfei admires her strength, thinking that she does it easily, although in reality, it is difficult for adults to lift a table. Chengtao comes over to check the veracity of Mei's strength, but he himself is unable to lift the table due to his back injury. He realizes he was trying to make her look bad, but ends up looking awkward and acknowledging her remarkable strength. Shengfei advises his friend to rest and not overwork himself, since his job is to help the children, not compete with them. The girl initiates breakfast, leaning on the table, and prepares to start eating, feeling hungry after her morning chores. Grandma Li appears with hot soup and noodles, causing Mei to be delighted as she admires the delicious food and is ready for her tasks. The older pig in the barn watches the children's activities, and the man demonstrates how to use an apple to attract the pig. Mei and Shengfei closely monitor the process, learning how to assist with piglet births and keep the work area clean. The girl shows understanding and care, noticing the mother pig's difficulties and perceiving working with animals as an important task. Qintao and his brother stay with Li Gao and eat a simple rice breakfast, feeling the difference in comfort level with Mei and Shengfei. They note that the aroma of their competitor's chicken soup is much more appealing than their humble dish. Shengfei notices how her aunt and thinks about her care for her parents, realizing how the girl has grown up and become independent. Mei shows concern for the pig's parents, explaining to Shengfei that the mother pig needs to be helped during the birth. The girl warns about the possible danger of a bite, and Shengfei carefully guides the pig, holding an apple to attract its attention. The older grandfather supports their actions, and the little one helps to calm the pig, stroking it and encouraging it with each push. Mei laughs and playfully encourages the animal during the difficult process, creating a friendly atmosphere. The old woman explains that during labor, the pig may move abruptly and suggests that the children be careful and stay outside if necessary. Mei insists on completing the mission, arguing that without help, the mission will not be completed and they will not get dinner. The grandmother admires the girl, noting her politeness, care, and patience when working with animals. The baby pig begins to give birth to her first piglet. Mei counts and encourages her, helping her push correctly. Shengfei wraps the newborn piglet in a towel to keep it warm and gently dries its body. Qintao comes to check if help is needed, notices that the process is going smoothly, and leaves the camera at a safe distance. Shengfei demonstrates his birthing skills, surprising Qintao, who thinks he has received special training. Mei comforts the mother pig by stroking her back and supporting the animal's emotional state during labor. The artist notes that the scene featuring the birth and the children's attention to the animals will become popular online and attract viewers. The sow gets scared and strains, and one piglet gets stuck inside, causing alarm among everyone watching the process. Shengfei screams, worried about the life of the piglet and its mother, realizing that she urgently needs help to pull the baby out. The grandfather calms the children while gently supporting the pig to minimize the risk of injury and stress. Mei continues to motivate the mother pig, believing that her support will help the birth to be completed safely. The atmosphere is tense but organized, with children and adults uniting to ensure the successful completion of the birth and care of the newborn. Shengfei rushes to the pig's side when he realizes the birth is difficult. His impulse is driven less by compassion than by a desire to salvage his damaged reputation in front of the cameras and the show's audience. He frantically tries to figure out how to help, but the pig begins squealing loudly and twitching. Grandfather immediately stops him, explaining that unnecessary noise only increases the animal's stress. The old man takes the men a little to the side and says that they first need to calm the mother pig. Pain and fear are preventing her from pushing normally, so any sudden movements nearby only make the situation worse. While the adults discuss the situation, Mei Mei quietly searches for something in her pocket. After a few seconds, she finds a small ball that looks like a candy. The girl confidently walks toward the pig with the balloon she found. Her calm contrasts sharply with the tense atmosphere around her. The artist notices this and immediately intervenes. He grabs the girl's hand, believing the child could harm the animal with inappropriate food. Mei Mei tries to break free and insists on her way. She's confident that her method will help the pig cope with the pain and complete the birth. Shengfei initially maintains caution, but realizes that arguing on camera will only make him look bad. So he backs off and lets the girl take over. Qin Tao is also forced to loosen his grip. He pretends to give in out of concern, though in reality, he hopes the girl will make a mistake. The old woman tries to gently lead the baby away from the animal. She's afraid that during the birth, the pig might suddenly jerk and accidentally knock the baby over. Mei Mei refuses to leave. She believes that since she came to complete a task, she must see it through to the end and help the animal. The girl carefully extends her hand to the pig. The animal surprisingly calmly eats the small ball, after which it gradually begins to relax. A few moments later, the labor continues. The sow pushes harder and another piglet is born. The tension in the barn gradually gives way to relief. Mei Mei joyfully watches as the babies begin to move around their mother. She carefully counted the newborn piglets. One by one, they crawled toward their mother and began searching for milk. Shengfei notices Mei Mei's hand. The skin bears marks from being pressed hard by fingers. The girl also notices the bruises and calmly points to Qin Tao. It was he who had grabbed her hand earlier, trying to stop her. Shengfei immediately becomes serious and reminds her friend that Mei Mei is a very important person to their family, so she must be treated with care. Qin Tao realizes the situation could backfire on him. He quickly changes his tone and begins apologizing, trying to appear sincere in front of the cameras. The girl accepts the apology, but warns him not to grab her hand so roughly again. It's important to her that adults keep their word. The artist promises that such a thing will never happen again. He tries to steer the conversation back to a friendly tone and soon leaves the barn. After some time, he returns alone. There's no one around, and the film crew's attention is directed elsewhere. He approaches the pig's water trough and takes out a small vial. Inside is a liquid labeled poison. Annoyed and humiliated by what happened, Qin Tao quietly pours some of the bottle's contents into the pig's water, hoping no one will notice. Mei Mei decides to visit the pig with Yo-Yo and her mother. Shengfei is also coming along. They want to see the newborn piglets and make sure the pig is doing well after giving birth. When they enter the barn, the joy instantly vanishes. The pig lies on the floor, breathing heavily and whining pitifully. Its skin is turning blue, and foam is coming out of its mouth. Yo-Yo is startled and immediately hides behind her mother. Shengfei and Mei Mei run closer, trying to figure out what's wrong with the animal and why it suddenly became so ill. Grandpa and Grandma run into the barn. Seeing the sow's condition, they turn pale. Their hands are shaking, because just recently the birth had been peaceful. The elderly understand the situation is critical. The nearest veterinarian is in the city, and the journey will take about 2 hours. The pig may not survive that time. Mei Mei takes a small pill out of her pocket and wants to help the animal. She's confident the medicine will alleviate the pig's condition. The grandmother tries to stop the girl. It's too much of a risk for adults, as the animal's life is at stake, and the child is too young to make such decisions. At that moment, Qin Tao appears. He begins asking questions about what happened and pretends to be equally concerned about the pig's condition. He hints that Mei Mei's strange medicines could be dangerous. His words sound like he doubts the child can truly help. Some adults are beginning to hesitate. They fear that an unknown remedy might only worsen the animal's condition. Shengfei tries to protect Mimei and suggests letting her try anyway. He believes it can't get any worse. The artist continues to press the issue, reminding the audience that the girl is only 3 years old and no one knows what she's carrying in her bag. He also hints that if the pig dies, the owners could suffer serious losses. His words sound like an attempt to shift responsibility onto others. Mei listens to the conversation and feels confused. She was sure the pig's fate was peaceful and nothing bad should have happened. The girl recalls her mother's words about taking her destiny into her own hands. This thought gives her the determination to act. The little one approaches the pig and carefully places the pill in her mouth. Despite the screams around her, she remains calm and focused. After some time, the animal's condition begins to change. Breathing gradually evens out, and the bluish tint to the skin slowly fades. The pig begins to rise and grunt softly. Everyone around looks on in amazement, unable to believe their eyes. The grandparents couldn't hide their relief. They thank Mei for her help and admit that without her, they could have lost the animal. Qintao watches this with growing irritation. His plan is clearly starting to unravel, and he can't understand how the pig was able to recover so quickly. Suddenly, the pig runs up to him and nudges him with its head. The man falls to the ground, not expecting such behavior from the animal. The girl says the pig sensed who harmed it. She claims the animal saw someone put poison in its feed. Everyone present turns to Qintao. He tries to justify himself, saying that humans cannot understand the language of animals. Shengfei stands next to Mei and supports her. He confidently declares that he trusts the girl's words and does not consider them a fabrication. The artist tries to steer the conversation toward legal matters. He suggests calling the police and conducting an investigation to prove his innocence. Despite his confidence, the atmosphere in the barn changes. Many begin to doubt his words, as the pig's behavior and the events of the last few minutes seem too strange. Qintao continues to pressure those around him, confidently asserting that the truth will eventually come out after the police investigation. He hints that the problems may have arisen because of the pill Mei gave the pig. Shengfei immediately objects, assuring her that there's no problem with the girl's medication. He speaks confidently and calmly, demonstrating his complete trust in the girl. The operator suggests everyone wait for the police at Li Gao's house. People begin to disperse, realizing that continuing the argument is pointless until the official investigation arrives. Yo-Yo cries quietly, rubbing her eyes in worry. Mei gently asks her to stop rubbing her face, lest her eyes swell and become even smaller. The girl tries to calm Mei down and says she believes her. She wipes away her tears and tries to support her friend, despite her own fear. Yo-Yo quietly shares a secret. In her opinion, Qintao is actually a very bad person, and she's long felt he can't be trusted. Mei calmly responds that she understands. She, too, senses that something is wrong with what's happening, and that the truth will eventually come out. The artist overhears their conversation. He's clearly irritated by what he's heard, and immediately takes out his phone to call someone. Soon, strange posts began appearing online. Videos and photographs create the impression that Mei was the one who poisoned the pig. The news spread quickly online. People began discussing the incident, and the accusations against the little girl grew louder. Ling Chun says that Qintao is acting like someone who has already destroyed all evidence. He fears that proving the truth will now be very difficult. Alice worries about Mei and wipes away her tears. She says she wouldn't want the little girl to go through such a difficult ordeal. The parents are trying to remain calm and promise to see this through to the end. They are confident the police will investigate Qintao. Ling Chun praises their determination and urges them to act quickly. He believes they can't let dirty rumors ruin the girl and her family's reputation. Meanwhile, the children are playing near a basin of water. Mei and Yo-Yo are distracted from their anxious conversations and begin playing with their toys. Meanwhile, Qintao discusses a new plan with his brother. He quietly whispers to him to act quickly and help him carry out his plan. A boy approaches the children and invites Mei and Yo-Yo to play with him. He shows them some large building blocks, which he has already begun to use to construct something. The little one examines the structure with interest and says it resembles a large yellow chicken. She points out where its head, tail, and food are. The girls laugh and continue building the block figure. The atmosphere becomes light and carefree for a moment. Yo-Yo quietly asks Mei why one of the boys isn't talking at all. She finds it strange that he's always silent. The boy is worried that children might laugh at him for his speech. He's afraid that his new friends might judge him too. Yo-Yo says he's not ugly at all and that you can be friends even without words. She insists that kindness is the most important thing. Mei gently strokes the girl's head and praises her intelligence. She says that Yo-Yo has a knack for drawing the right conclusions. At that moment, the police finally arrive on the scene. Shengfei is about to explain the situation, but suddenly, a loud splash is heard. One of the boys suddenly falls into the water. Panic ensues, and Qintao's brother immediately accuses the other girl of pushing the child. The girl, confused, says that Cheng Hao did it. However, the artist insists she's lying and that she's the one to blame for what happened. Li Gao runs up to his son and angrily asks which of the children hurt his child. The tension around him grows even greater than before. Yang comes to after falling into the water, and Li Gao cautiously asks his son if he saw who pushed him. Everyone around him freezes, awaiting the boy's answer. Chen Tao immediately intervenes and begins blaming Mei, arguing that children should admit their guilt. His words only heighten the tension among the adults. Li's mother suggests checking the security camera footage to get to the bottom of things. However, the camera operator reports that the camera's screen momentarily went black at that exact moment. The cameraman claims he did manage to see what happened and claims it was Mei who pushed the boy. This statement sparks a wave of whispers among those present. Shenfei worriedly asks the girl what really happened. The girl calmly begins to explain how it all happened before her eyes. Mei says Qinhao was showing her his toys when he suddenly pushed Li Yan. He then grabbed his toy and ran away. According to the girl, he later began to claim that she was to blame. His relatives also echo this version, amplifying the accusations. Mei breaks down and starts crying, insisting that she didn't push anyone. She's certain her friend couldn't possibly do such a thing. Shengfei tries to calm the girl down and says he believes his aunt. He asks her not to cry and assures her that the truth will definitely come out. Qintao tries to smooth things over, saying that the children often quarrel. He suggests simply paying the child's injury costs. However, Li Gao is outraged by this proposal. He says his son's pain cannot simply be compensated for with money. He comes closer to Shengfei and states that if his daughter really pushed his son, then it would be fair to push her back. Mei desperately repeats that it wasn't her. The girl points to Chen Hao again, but her words are still not believed. Despite the accusations, Mei takes a green bottle of medicine from her bag. She says it improves blood circulation and helps with pain. The girl offers to give the injured boy medicine to ease his condition. Her concern surprises some adults. However, Qintao abruptly stops her and warns her against giving medication without permission. He sarcastically alludes to the pig incident. The adults demand an immediate resolution to the matter and the culprit's identification. Shenfei firmly replies that Mei did not push anyone. The police officer says that in order to clarify the circumstances, Shengfei and Mei must go to the station and give official statements. At that moment, the voice of a boy named Li Yan suddenly resounds. He suddenly begins to speak and claims that Mei is innocent. The boy says he saw someone take their medicine. He points at Qintao, causing everyone to look surprised. The police officer clarifies whether the child actually witnessed this with his own eyes. People around are astonished that the boy, who was considered mute, suddenly spoke. The artist tries to justify himself, claiming that the child might be lying. He tries to make the boy's words seem meaningless. Yo-Yo resolutely defends Mei, saying her friend never lies. She is outraged by the adults' accusations. Some adults are beginning to doubt Qintao's account, noting that children are rarely capable of malicious intent against animals. The girl gathers her courage and thanks her friends for their support. She admits that before she only cried, but now she wants to prove the truth herself. The girl asks permission to use the same method that once worked at her relative's party. The adults agree to give her a try. Mei makes several movements in the air, as if drawing symbols. A piece of paper suddenly sticks to the artist's forehead. Under the influence of a strange force, Qintao suddenly begins to tell the truth. He admits that he asked them not to film him while he was picking up the pesticide. The man panics, realizing he's just confessed to a crime out loud. He tries to stop, but the words keep spilling out. Following Qintao's unexpected confession, the recording quickly went viral. The comments section erupted in discussion, and users couldn't believe what they were hearing. Many viewers write that the artist seemed to have accidentally let the information slip. Others, however, are certain that this is impossible and are attempting to justify his behavior. Maimei loudly asks why he used poison and why he tried to harm the pig. Her question makes Qintao speak again, against his will. He admits he wanted to tame the animal, but the pig wouldn't let him. Then he got angry and decided to use poison. Under the influence of the talisman, the man continues to tell the truth. He admits that he envied Shengfei's success on the show and his incredible luck. Qintao reveals that he deliberately framed Mimei so that the accusation of poisoning the pig would ruin Shengfei's reputation and lead to the termination of contracts. He admits that envy tormented him for many years. From the very beginning, he wanted Shengfei to constantly face scandals. The man also reveals a long-held secret. He says that even the attack by hooligans in the past was orchestrated by him. It turns out he hired people to attack Shengfei and then pretended to be his savior. This was his way of gaining his trust and becoming his close friend. Despite all this, Shengfei treated him sincerely and even helped him land film roles. This only fueled Qingchao's envy. He shouts that he doesn't understand why Shengfei always gets the leading roles, while he only gets supporting characters. Meanwhile, the truth about the boy's fall also comes to light. Qintao admits that he ordered his brother to orchestrate the incident. The boy, frightened, admits that he pushed Li Yan at his older brother's request. He cries and says he just wanted to save his toy. The police no longer hesitate and quickly detain the man. They pin him to the ground and officially announce his arrest. He is informed that he is being detained for poisoning animals and admitting to using illegal substances. Everything he says will be used in court. News of the arrest immediately became a top topic online. Users were shocked by how quickly the truth was revealed. Many users are starting to apologize to Meimei. They admit they were quick to blame her without properly understanding the situation. Shengfei also receives apologies. People admit they previously believed the rumors, but now realize they were unfair. After Qintao's arrest, his younger brother is taken away by his mother. Before leaving, the boy returns Meimei's toy and apologizes. The girl calmly accepts the apology and says the main thing is to change her behavior. The children say goodbye and promise to meet again. Later, the show's organizer approaches Shengfei and apologizes for what happened. He admits the situation could have been much worse. The guy replies that he's grateful for the invitation to the program. Thanks to it, he was able to clear his name and protect Meimei. The organizer reports that a new participant has already been invited to replace Qintao. He will fly in tonight and join the filming in the morning. The next day, the team gathers again at the site. Early in the morning, the alarm sounds, and the operator cheerfully announces the time for rise. Meimei greets the audience and participants in front of the cameras. She asks with a smile what new task awaits them today. The operator quietly reminds Meimei to keep everything secret and quickly join the group. The girl assures her that everything is fine and calmly heads over to the other participants. Meanwhile, Shengfei pours herself some tea, and Mrs. Li and Shuo Weiwei sit silently on the sofa. The morning passes quietly as the children gradually gather. Meimei and Yo-Yo greet each other joyfully and hug. The girls notice that their t-shirts feature little ducklings and examine them with interest. Yo-Yo asks where Big Yellow and Little Yellow are. Meimei says she wants to go get the chickens and promises to return quickly. Shengfei allows her to go, since filming hasn't started yet. Meimei grabs Yo-Yo's hand, and the girls run upstairs to change. A moment later, Zizai catches up with them. He says he wants to come with them too, and the girls don't object, letting him join them. Zizi follows Meimei around and barely says anything. The girls are starting to get a little irritated by his constant silent presence. Suddenly, Meimei notices that Zhou Yu has also approached them. The girl is surprised why everyone has suddenly decided to go together. Zhou Yu explains that he also wants to see Big Yellow Chicken and Little Yellow Chicken. Meimei agrees, and the four of them continue on their way. The boy suddenly smiles and takes the girls' hands, inviting them to walk together. Zizi stays behind a little, feeling a little jealous. He thinks he'd also like to walk next to Mei, but Ruyu beats him to it. This makes the boy feel uneasy. At this point, the cameraman announces that a new guest has arrived on the show. An elegant woman enters the room with her daughter. Shengfei's expression immediately changed upon seeing her. He clearly hadn't expected to meet this particular person here. The woman introduces herself and says she hasn't seen the participants in a while. Her name is Ashley, and she's a famous actress. She was just starting out in her career, but has now become one of the industry's most successful stars. She even recently won the Best Actress award. Yo-Yo's mom warmly welcomes her guest and expresses surprise that such a busy actress found time to appear on the show. Ashley asks not to be identified formally and suggests calling her by her first name. She explains that they're not at a business meeting today. Then she introduces everyone to her daughter. The girl's name is Fukuji, and she's 4 years old. The little guest greets the adults politely. Many remark that she looks like a real little princess. Fukuji asks her mother where the other children she's heard about are. She hopes to find new friends there. Ashley is also surprised that none of the children are in sight yet. She turns around and asks where they are now. Then she turns to Shengfei and asks where his little aunt is. He tries to smile calmly and replies that the children have gone to look at the chickens. He realizes he wouldn't have spoken so calmly to Ashley before. But now he tries to act differently for Mei's sake. At that moment, the children return. Mei runs into the room with Yo-Yo, Joyu, and Zizi, holding a small box. She opens her backpack and carefully takes out 2 fluffy chicks. The children happily show them to the adults. Fukuji immediately approaches Mei and introduces herself. The girl also tells him her name and smiles at her new acquaintance. The girl sits down next to him and says the chicks are very cute. She reaches out to gently pet one of them. At that moment, Mei notices something strange. It seems to her that dark shadows, resembling animal silhouettes, are looming around Fukuji. Mei notices that Dahuang and Xiaohuang are reluctant to approach the new girl. She becomes worried and doesn't understand why the chicks are acting so wary. At this point, Joyu carefully takes the chickens and leads Mei a little to the side. He says he wants to talk to her alone. Mei realizes the boy is simply helping her avoid an awkward situation. She thanks him, and then they let the chicks roam among the flowers. Mei asks Dahuang and Xiaohuang to look for food themselves and promises to come back later. The chickens happily run off into the flower beds. Joyu shyly responds to the girl's thanks. At that moment, Yo-Yo comes closer and firmly takes Mei's hand. Yo-Yo looks at Joyu with displeasure, as if afraid he might take her friend away from her. The girl clearly doesn't want to share Mei's attention. Soon the director and his guardians approach the children. He announces a new task for the show's participants. The team informs them that the village will not provide them with food today. Participants will have to find their own food and prepare breakfast. The children must find firewood, start a fire, and cook food from whatever they can gather in the area. This becomes a new challenge for the program. Mei runs up to Shengfei and asks what's going on. He explains the rules of the task and looks at the children. Shengfei notices a strange tension between Ruyu and Yo-Yo. Their glances betray a slight rivalry. Mei also notices that Zizi looks displeased. The boy turns away and pretends to be offended. He's used to adults at home immediately trying to persuade and console him if he shows any dissatisfaction. Now he expects the same reaction. However, when he turns around again, he finds that Mei and Shengfei have already left. This greatly surprises him. Zizi begins to doubt that Mei even notices him. He feels like the girl might be upset with him. Meanwhile, Fukuji approaches her mother and asks her to quickly go find food. She really wants to participate in the task. Zizi immediately runs off to his mother, Wei, without even listening to the rest of the conversation. Fukuji, irritated, thinks the boy is being rude. While the adults discuss the assignment, Mei and the children go to the meadow. Suddenly, the girl notices a multitude of butterflies. Yo-Yo is surprised that all the butterflies around her are white. They're usually colorful, and she finds this odd. Mei smiles and tells her friend to wait a bit. She promises to show her colorful butterflies when they wake up. The girl begins to explain that butterflies are not yet active in the morning, which is why they appear quiet and almost invisible. Then Maimei notices a small purple flower. She bends down and examines the plant closely. She explains that the flower is called Ida Hong. Its leaves resemble hoof prints, which is why the plant is sometimes called sheep's foot grass. Maimei explains that this is a medicinal plant. It improves circulation, reduces inflammation, and helps cleanse the body. The girl tries to remember another medicinal property, but suddenly admits that she is hungry and has forgotten the rest. Joyu comes closer and calmly expands on her explanation. He says the plant is also used for infections and inflammations. Mei looks at him admiringly and praises the boy's knowledge. Joyu modestly replies that he simply read about it in a book once. At that moment, adults approach them with collected plants. They said they had found wild vegetables and mushrooms on the mountain. Fukiji points to one of the shoots and says it's a fern, perfect for breakfast. She invites everyone to pick these plants. One of the adults picks a similar shoot and shows it to the children, but another immediately stops him and warns him of the danger. He says it's a poisonous plant and shouldn't be touched. A mistake could end very badly. Keiji looks at Mei with disbelief and asks how a common wild plant could be poisonous. The girl is sure everyone in the villages knows this vegetable. The girl calmly explains that the plant is called guancheng. It looks very similar to an edible fern, but is actually dangerous. She explains that eating this plant causes dizziness, severe diarrhea, and even breathing problems. Therefore, it should not be eaten. Keiji is irritated inside and thinks about her mother. She was taught to memorize the village's plants carefully, but now she's starting to doubt it. Thoughts of her family status flashed through Keiji's mind. She dreamed of living like a wealthy housewife after meeting the Ju family. However, even little Fuji seems too cunning and observant to her. The girl acts like a little princess in public. Behind the adults' backs, Fuji often behaves differently. She can be cruel to small animals and doesn't show the kindness she shows to others. Keiji decides she still can't admit she was wrong. She's certain the plant's leaves look normal and can't be dangerous. Her stepmother supports her and says it's just a common fern. She assures everyone the plant is safe. The woman adds that Mei is just a child and could have gotten confused. At the same time, she's trying to save face in front of everyone. Heiji understands that if she agrees with her mother, she will be pleased. The girl doesn't want to let Mei become the center of attention. Aishel also intervenes, saying the plant looks normal. She reminds her daughter that she often ate wild vegetables as a child. Fujie, curious, asks to see more plants. The woman confidently explains which ones are safe to harvest. Mei watches what's happening and feels an internal conflict. She feels it's wrong to silently watch as people are poisoned. She recalls her mother's words about medical knowledge being used to save lives. That's why it's hard for her to simply leave. Joyu quietly approaches and says that sometimes people need to see for themselves how wrong they are. He recalls the old saying about the wall you have to hit yourself. Mei takes the hint and decides not to interfere for now. She takes Yo-Yo's hand and tells him it's best to go find some other food. The girls run to a clearing and soon find a multitude of mushrooms. Yo-Yo happily points them out, amazed by their number. Mei takes a small collapsible container out of her bag. It opens up and becomes a handy mushroom picking basket. Keiji suddenly appears nearby and says that only porcini mushrooms are edible. She's trying to show her knowledge. However, Mei and Yo-Yo calmly turn around and walk away. Keiji remains standing, irritated by their reaction. In the clearing, the girls carefully pick mushrooms and inspect each one. Mei explains to Yo-Yo which ones are safe to take. She shows one mushroom and says it's called a black porcelain mushroom. It has a pleasant aroma and is edible. Yo-Yo sniffs the mushroom and is dubious about the scent, but she decides to trust Mei anyway. The girl warns that brightly colored mushrooms are often poisonous, so extreme caution is needed. Yo-Yo confidently declares her faith in Mei. The girls continue to gather mushrooms together, gradually filling their basket. Later, everyone gathers again with the adults and displays their catch. Shengfei smiles and asks the children if they want meat. Yo-Yo immediately raises her hand and says she wants meat. Ashley laughs and asks where they're going to find meat in the forest. Mei answers seriously that it's possible. She calmly asks if they want rabbit or pheasant. Yo-Yo selects a rabbit, and Mei confidently declares that the rabbit will appear soon. At that moment, a rustling sound is heard in the bushes. Children and adults alike look in surprise toward the sound. It seems incredible, but someone is indeed approaching from the dense bushes. Mei calmly watches the rabbits emerge and remembers her mother's words. When she craved meat, the animals would sometimes come to her, and her mother would say it was a special gift left by her grandfather. Mom explained that such animals come voluntarily, meaning they need to be sent off with respect. Then their souls can be reborn in a better form. The girl quietly thanks the rabbits and sits down next to them. She sincerely thanks them for this gift. Keiji is surprised and says the rabbits are too cute to eat. The girl suggests releasing the animals and leaving them alive. However, Mei hears the quiet pleas of the rabbit spirits. They seem to be begging her to fulfill their request and help them move on. Mei nods and promises that everything will be done correctly. She quietly chants a blessing and gently touches their heads with the leaves. The girl completes the ritual, wishing the animals a safe journey. Afterward, she hands the rabbits over to Shengfei. Shengfei accepts the spoils and prepares to take them away for cooking. The adults are surprised by how calm Mei is about the whole thing. Keiji watches this with irritation. She's furious that the rabbits were still taken, despite her words. The girl begins to complain to her mother, saying that she's being ignored again. She feels like no one is paying attention to her. Her mother tries to console her and says that Mei is simply too young to always respond to conversations. But Keiji continues to cry and says that maybe she just isn't trying hard enough to please others. To distract her daughter, her mother gives her a toy, a stick with a string and a small weight on the end. Keiji starts waving the toy and approaches the children, confident that everyone should admire her invention. Approaching Mei, she boasts about her toy and asks if she likes it. The girl is trying to get her attention. Mei is a little surprised and remembers that Keiji just complained about being ignored. She finds the girl's behavior baffling. Mei gradually begins to feel irritated. From the very beginning, Keiji tried to force a friendship, but her behavior seemed strange. Mei even suspects that something untoward may be afoot around Keiji, so she tries to tread carefully. Despite this, the girl politely thanks him for the gift, but she honestly says she doesn't want to be friends and can't accept the toy. Keiji momentarily fears she might lose control of the situation. She's afraid she'll show her irritation right in front of the cameras. Her mother quickly reminds her to stay calm and tells her that viewers love her for her kind image. Keiji's expression instantly changes, and she says she understands. She pretends she won't push her way in anymore. However, Yo-Yo suddenly declares that she doesn't want to be friends with Keiji either. The girl runs up to Mei and stands next to her. This angers Keiji even more, though she tries not to show her emotions. She decides to try to befriend Jo-Yu. Keiji shows him her toy and tries to look cute. She's sure the boy will be interested, but Jo-Yu calmly replies that he doesn't want to talk to her either. He simply turns and walks away to Mei and Yo-Yo. Keiji intervenes again, saying that her toy can attract butterflies. She tries to offer it to Mei again. Mei is perplexed why Keiji continues to talk to her after he refused. The girl calmly rummages through her bag. She takes out a small bottle of fragrant powder. Yo-Yo immediately notices the pleasant aroma. Mei explains that this is a butterfly powder she made with her mother. The insects love this scent. The girl gently shakes the powder, and a sweet scent spreads across the clearing. Within seconds, butterflies begin to flock to her. Yo-Yo gazes at the sky in awe. Beautiful, colorful butterflies begin to circle around them. The girls laugh and discuss a funny theory about butterflies being attracted to a special scent. Mei shows a box of powder that supposedly attracts insects, sparking the children's interest. Yo-Yo curiously extends her hand to test the powder's effect. Mei carefully applies the powder to her palm, and the girls eagerly wait to see if a single butterfly will appear. While the children observe the garden, Mei reminds Yo-Yo about her health. She gently remarks that the girl is too thin and tries to convince her to eat better and not skip meals. Yo-Yo awkwardly promises that she'll definitely eat a proper meal later. To make the promise more serious, the girls seal it with a childhood ritual, linking their little fingers, treating the gesture as a solemn vow. After making the promise, Yo-Yo begins to worry, as she doesn't like rice. The girl is torn between her reluctance to eat the food she dislikes and her fear of losing her friendship with Mei if she doesn't fulfill the agreement. Her thoughts are suddenly interrupted by an unexpected miracle. A real butterfly lands on Yo-Yo's hand, as if confirming the power of the mysterious powder and delighting all the children around her. Mrs. Lee watches the proceedings with interest and decides to try the remedy herself. Mei Mei eagerly applies a little powder to her hand, turning the proceedings into a fun game for everyone. Soon, butterflies begin circling around Mrs. Lee as well. The insects land on her palm, and the children joyfully watch this spectacle, considering it a true little miracle. Shenfei asks for some powder. Mei Mei asks where to apply it, and the boy excitedly points to his face, eliciting laughter and friendly teasing from the others. Mei Mei playfully warns the boy about the consequences of such an idea. She hints that bad breath might repel butterflies, which amuses everyone even more. Shenfei begins to justify himself and worries that such words could ruin his reputation. The thought of others seeing the recording clearly embarrasses him. The girl continues to tease, recalling her mother's words about men often smelling worse than women. The joke quickly catches on with the adults, turning into a hilarious group discussion. While everyone is laughing and having fun, Keiji watches from the sidelines. Her mood contrasts sharply with the general joy, as everyone's attention is focused entirely on Mei Mei. The girl convinces herself that the situation will soon change. She hopes that the unusual mushrooms that have recently appeared will play a role and put Mei Mei in an awkward position. After the walk, the participants return and begin preparing lunch. They wash the mushrooms and arrange the ingredients, gradually transforming the common area into a shared dining space. Ashley offers to cook for everyone and approaches the other participants with the idea. However, her offer is met with a cold reception, making it clear that her help is unwelcome. The refusal is quite abrupt, and Ashley struggles to hide her irritation. She backs away, trying to remain calm, though inside she clearly feels hurt and tense. During lunch, Keiji decides to try some mushrooms. She's convinced that spicy foods can be dangerous, so she chooses her food carefully, trying not to take any risks. Suddenly, a ghostly demon cat appears nearby. The animal behaves aggressively, meowing loudly and jumping around Keiji, causing her great fear. Keiji retreats from the table in panic, dropping her chopsticks. She trembles and tries to ward off the frightening creature, while Mei Mei watches from the sidelines, in no hurry to intervene. Keiji, Aishel, and several other adults hide under the table in panic. They scream and try to shield themselves with their hands, as if fleeing something invisible. Their fear seems so genuine that those around them don't understand what's happening at first. Keiji trembles with terror and hides his head, begging no one to come closer. Aishel also tries to justify herself, claiming she had nothing to do with what's happening. Their screams fill the area with anxiety and confusion. The cameramen and children look around in confusion, trying to figure out the source of the noise. No one sees any threat, but the panic of the two women seems so intense that it causes general confusion. Mei Mei tries to protect Yo-Yo from what's happening. She gently covers the girl's ears so she doesn't hear the screams and become frightened, trying to keep the child calm amid the general chaos. Ms. Lee suspects that the strange behavior was caused by mushrooms or potions that triggered hallucinations. However, Mei Mei believes that this is not the case, and that the events are related to other factors. According to Mei Mei, women pay for their own actions. She observes events calmly and perceives the situation as a manifestation of karma, which returns the consequences of their actions to others. The program staff brings medication and water. Keiji and Aishel give them pills, hoping that this will make them feel better and that the strange condition will soon pass. The panic intensifies when Keiji begins claiming the ghost is attacking and biting her. Her makeup runs down her face, and her desperate screams frighten those around her even more. The staff try to reassure everyone present. They explain that the mushrooms aren't that toxic and that such reactions sometimes happen accidentally, but that the condition should return to normal after a while. Meanwhile, off to the side, adults discuss the strange situation. Some are surprised why talk of Keimel's long-ago death is resurfacing, given that it was officially considered an accident. The conversation is interrupted by a phone call. One of the people on the other end of the line is irritated and promises to sort it out later, focusing on more urgent matters related to the current situation. Gradually, the drug begins to work. Ashley comes to and thanks the people for their help, while Keiji still looks frightened and can't fully calm down. The cameraman notices Mei Mei and Du Yong playing calmly away from all the commotion. Their carefree demeanor contrasts sharply with the tense atmosphere around them. Du Yong is worried that what's happening could be misinterpreted. He fears that others will blame Mei Mei for not stopping the women from eating the suspicious mushrooms. Mei Mei responds calmly and confidently. She believes there will be no negative consequences for her, and reminds her that cruelty to animals and other creatures inevitably returns to humans. She explains that animals also have souls and feelings. If you hurt them, the consequences will sooner or later catch up with the offender, so people should treat the world around them more kindly. Du Yun listens to her with a smile and affection. He finds Mei Mei very sweet and even jokes, suggesting that she move in with his family after the show ends. Mei Mei declines the offer, reminding him that she belongs to the Su family and can't simply leave her family to live in another home. Meanwhile, Keiji gradually recalls disturbing events from her past. Her memory returns to the image of a frightened cat and scenes of cruelty. Elsewhere, Keiji's father sits in an airport lounge, watching stocks plummet. He reflects on a call he made to a man who recently offered to help him with a strange situation. As he dials the number, a stranger appears next to him. The man hints that he can save his daughter if Keiji's father agrees to use his money and influence to cooperate. Aishul and Keiji appear distraught after the incident, but the other participants are largely unharmed. Gradually, the situation in the clearing returns to normal, and people begin to return to their normal activities. Adult participants gather in the clearing along with the children and relatives. The small group discusses plans for the day, trying to figure out what to do and how to spend time after the morning rush. Yo-Yo's mom suggests a more relaxed option. She mentions a nearby village pond and suggests the whole group go fishing there, which immediately sparks interest among those around her. Meanwhile, one of the women and her son approach Mei Mei. She apologizes for her previous behavior, and the child also bows his head, showing sincere remorse. Zizi then approaches Mei Mei and apologizes for pulling her hair earlier. The girl accepts the apology calmly and without offense, displaying a friendly attitude. Mei Mei also acknowledges her part in the argument. She warns that in the future she will not tolerate bad behavior without an apology, but for now she is ready to put the previous conflict behind her. After the reconciliation, the children's mood noticeably improves. The atmosphere becomes calmer and the previous tension gradually dissipates. Mei Mei reflects on the power of apologies to change people's lives. She reflects on how sometimes simple remorse can turn events in a more positive direction. Her thoughts are interrupted by Shenfei, who approaches her and reminds her of the fishing offer. The girl is distracted from her thoughts and returns to the general conversation. Zhou Yu appears nearby and asks curiously if Mei Mei is going to join the trip to the pond. The girl perks up and decides to join the others. Zhou Yu feels uneasy as he was forbidden to go near the water. He hesitates and hesitates to join everyone else, fearing trouble. The girl notices his doubts and quietly assures him that nothing bad will happen with her. She suggests he just stick close and not be afraid. Her confidence surprises the boy. He feels as if the girl somehow understands his worries better than he can explain them. As Mei Mei extends her hand, Yo-Yo suddenly runs up to her. She tries to take her hand first, preventing Zhou Yu from doing so. The girl finds herself in an awkward position, as she only has 2 arms. She explains with a smile that she can't hold on to everyone at once and suggests that the boys hold on to each other. The boys immediately reject the idea. Eventually, Mei Mei comes up with a simple solution. The children cling to her clothes, and the whole group moves together. When they arrive at the pond, the adults are already preparing their fishing gear. Several fishing rods are laid out on the ground, and a discussion begins about which one to choose. One of the adults jokingly says that before fishing, you need to feel the rod and establish a special connection with it. His words evoke laughter and amused comments from the others. Observers notice that some adults are trying to cleverly manipulate the situation to ensure that certain children end up with Mei Mei. These little intrigues are quite amusing. Finally, Mei Mei picks up her fishing rod and gets ready to fish. One of the boys still lingers close, and the adults gently hint that it's time to let go of her hand and focus on fishing. Yu continues to hold the girl's hand and stubbornly looks at the ground. His behavior surprises the adults, as he is usually quiet and obedient, but now he suddenly displays stubbornness. Shenfei tries to gently intervene and suggests the boy let Mei Mei go fishing with the other children. He tries to speak calmly so as not to create an unnecessary scene. Yu reluctantly agrees and steps aside. However, Mei Mei almost immediately takes him to the water, and Shenfei realizes that arguing with the girl now is pointless. At the pond, Mei Mei is trying to prepare her fishing rod. She wants to catch a big fish, but she can't get the worm on the hook and is starting to feel a little angry with herself. She asks Yu to help her with the bait. The boy confidently takes the hook and carefully baits the worm, much more skillfully than the girl expected. Mei Mei is amazed by his skill and praises him. Yu, however, shyly replies that she is the one who is truly amazing. The boy admits he's never sat by a pond and fished before. It's a new and unfamiliar experience, one that unexpectedly brings him peace. The conversation suddenly turns to why Mei Mei calls him Big Brother. This question arouses the boy's genuine curiosity and slight confusion. Shenfei, standing nearby, also listens attentively. He's curious why the girl uses this particular form of address. Mei Mei explains it very simply. She says her mother taught her to call handsome boys big brothers, so that's why she chose that address. This answer simultaneously confuses and delights Yu. Shenfei, however, reacts differently, feeling unexpected irritation and jealousy. He tries to ask jokingly what Mei Mei would call him if they weren't related. The question sounds flippant, but there's a hidden expectation behind it. Mei Mei responds without hesitation that in that case, she would also call him Big Brother Shenfei. These words unexpectedly delight him. However, the girl adds that he still remains an older relative to her. This phrase immediately dampens his joy and slightly wounds his pride. To avoid further awkward conversation, Mei Mei reminds them that silence is essential when fishing. She signals to the boys that it's time to focus on their fishing rods. Meanwhile, in a nearby house, Keiji sits in a chair and acts increasingly strangely. She sways from side to side and continues talking about Carmel's ghost. Ashley tries to understand her situation and asks cautious questions. But Keiji responds abruptly and rudely, showing irritation even toward her own mother. She orders her mother to bring some water. Ashley obediently leaves the room, hoping it will help her daughter calm down a bit. Left alone, Keiji goes to the window and watches the children by the pond. She sees Mei Mei, Shenfei, and Yu calmly fishing. At that moment, Mei Mei notices her fishing rod twitching. The girl exclaims joyfully, thinking she's hooked a big fish. However, the catch gets away and the fish escapes. Mei Mei is a little disappointed, but still continues fishing with the same passion. Watching this from the window, Keiji recalls dark past events involving Carmel. These memories fill her mind with anger and terrifying thoughts, and the girl approaches the children. A dark desire for revenge gradually takes shape in her mind. Keiji begins to think about how she can one day send Mei Mei to the same fate that befell Carmel. Mei Mei suddenly notices a piece of sharp glass flying straight at her face. For a moment, the girl is frightened, as the impact could have seriously injured her. The danger is very close, and the situation unfolds in a split second. Yu reacts before the others. He smashes the glass with his hand, preventing it from hitting Mei Mei. The blade falls to the ground, and a commotion immediately erupts around him. Shenfei instantly realizes what has happened and grabs Keiji, his rage evident. He's outraged that she attempted to attack a child right in front of everyone. Keiji just laughs and acts defiantly. She's confident that adults won't be able to punish her seriously, since she's still a child. Shenfei can barely contain himself and is about to hit her. However, Mei Mei abruptly stops him, preventing the adult from breaking down. The girl declares that she will deal with the offender herself. She comes closer and punches Keiji in the cheek with all her might for trying to disfigure her face. Keiji falls to the ground, and Ashley immediately rushes to her daughter, worried about her condition and preparing to take her to the hospital. While everyone is distracted by Keiji, Mei Mei suddenly realizes something even more serious has happened. She remembers letting go of Yu's hand. Turning around, the girl saw a horrific scene. The boy was lying unconscious, his hands covered in blood from being struck by a stone. Maimei quickly realizes it's not just the wound. She notices that the boy's soul is beginning to separate from his body. A ghostly image of Jo-yu appears before her, slowly moving away from his body. The girl tries to reach him, but is unable to. The boy explains that he's been linked to a dangerous prophecy since birth. His destiny has always been linked to water, and he was predicted to have a short life. He admits that he had to avoid rivers and lakes unless he met a person who could change his destiny and save his life. Maimei realizes that time is running out. The boy's soul continues to recede, and if it disappears completely, it will be impossible to bring him back. The girl quickly takes a rope out of her bag and tries to use it to hold on to Jo-yu's ghostly silhouette, as if catching it in the air. However, the attempt initially fails. The ghost continues to slip away, and Maimei begins to worry, trying to figure out what exactly is holding it back. Looking closely, she notices a red thread around the boy's neck. The girl guesses that it is this thread that holds the soul and prevents it from returning. Maimei quickly cuts the thread. At that moment, Ryu's soul is drawn back. As if freed from an invisible constraint, she helps the spirit return to the body and immediately gives the boy medicine. A moment later, Jo-yu opens his eyes and begins to come to his senses. Maimei breathes a sigh of relief, seeing that he's alive. She tells him not to worry and assures him that whoever tried to take his soul will soon be punished. The boy still looks distraught after the ordeal. Maimei tries to support him and lift his spirits, understanding that what happened has left him deeply frightened. Maimei assures Jo-yu that she can solve his problem. The girl speaks calmly and confidently, trying to comfort the boy after his ordeal. The boy smiles gratefully, though his gaze still lingers with concern. At this moment, Shenfei suddenly cries out, as if startled by something. His sudden reaction makes the surrounding adults wary and stare at him. Shenfei quickly regains his composure and tries to smooth things over. He pretends nothing out of the ordinary has happened and urges everyone to remain calm. Maimei is bombarded with questions. They are puzzled by the strange movement of the whip that happened a moment ago, and they try to figure out what exactly happened. Shenfei doesn't want to continue the conversation. He turns his attention back to fishing and suggests they simply continue relaxing without dwelling on these strange things. Meanwhile, the man who had previously promised to help Samuel with his problem sits nearby in a car. He's performing a strange ritual using a doll resembling a voodoo figurine. Samuel watches the scene with concern. The man assures him that if the ritual is performed correctly and the child's data is used, the problem will be solved. When the needle touches the doll, it suddenly begins to move and makes frightening sounds. Samuel is frightened, as what's happening seems truly sinister. The sorcerer declares the ritual complete and hands the doll over to Samuel. He then calls Keiji's mother to check on the girl. Ashley reports that Keiji's condition has improved and she's stopped screaming. Samuel hopes the ritual really did solve the problem. The sorcerer, however, appears pleased not only with the result of his work. He claims he unexpectedly received something far more valuable, the soul of a man with a rare spiritual destiny. But at that moment, something unexpected happens. The talisman with the red threads bursts from his hands, knocking the phone away and causing him to cry out in fear. The doll begins to behave strangely, as if coming to life. The sorcerer, in a panic, tries to protect himself with new talismans until the unknown force vanishes. Afterwards, he explains to Samuel that the intervention of other spirits has thwarted his plans. Now the angry spirit can haunt Keiji again. Samuel, fearing for his daughter's safety, is willing to pay any amount. He transfers a large sum, hoping that the sorcerer will finally be able to rectify the situation. Meanwhile, things are gradually calming down at the pond. The program participants continue fishing and soon manage to catch a fair amount of fish. Ms. Lee suggests they finish fishing and return home to cook the catch. Everyone agrees, pleased with the peaceful end to the day. When they return, Samuel is already waiting for them with his daughter in his arms. He introduces himself and tries to talk to Shenfei. Shenfei greets him coldly and doesn't return his outstretched hand. He reminds Samuel that his daughter tried to injure Maimei with glass and that the lawyers will now handle the matter. Samuel tries to justify Keiji by shifting the blame onto those around her. He claims that if she had been stopped in time, nothing would have happened. Mei Mei calmly replies that she warned the girl, but she didn't want to listen. The girl says she prefers to play only with those who listen. Shenfei advises Samuel to take charge of his daughter's upbringing and seek professional help before she harms anyone again. Realizing the conversation is futile, Samuel leaves with Keiji, promising to return. His words sound like a veiled threat. Afterwards, Jo-Yu's older brother thanks Mei Mei for saving the boy. He sincerely admits that he doesn't know how to repay her for her help. Mei Mei's answer is simple. She says she helped the boy because she likes him and promises to keep her word and free him from the curse. The girl explains that, to do this, they need to find the spirit of fire. Jo-Yu immediately understands what she's talking about and begins to realize how serious a challenge awaits them. Mei Mei explains to Ru-Yu what the friendship movement is. She wants to take him to the temple and introduce him to her spiritual guardians. She says this will help him better understand the real world and protect him from danger. The girl recalls her mother's words about the 4 sacred beasts of their country: the dragon, the scarlet bird, the white tiger, and the black tortoise. Each is associated with a specific element and possesses special powers. Mei Mei pays special attention to the firebird. She explains that sparks from its flame, falling to the ground, can gain consciousness and transform into a fire spirit. Until the true fire spirit is found, Mei Mei promises to temporarily protect Jo-Yu. She promises to compensate for the lack of fire in his destiny. The girl explains that the main rule for Jo-Yu is to stay away from water. If he stays close to her and avoids bodies of water, the danger to his life will be significantly reduced. However, adults note that it's impossible to completely avoid water. It's everywhere in everyday life, yet people still need to drink and use it. They also warn that the danger to Jo-Yu will only increase as he ages. Water may become an increasingly serious threat. Mei Mei doesn't want to leave the matter unfinished. She feels responsible for the boy and is determined to help him completely break free from the curse. Jo-Yu is grateful for her care, but he feels conflicted. He enjoys spending time with Mei Mei, but he doesn't want to be dependent on her for the rest of his life. He dreams of protecting her himself and being there for her. Even if she's capable of saving him, the boy wants to repay her in kind one day. The adults discuss the situation and agree that Jo-Yu can accompany Mei Mei. They jokingly call him the girl's little bodyguard. Some view this with irony, as the Su family already has plenty of protectors. However, everyone still finds the proposal amusing and interesting. To seal the deal, Mei Mei takes out a protective amulet. She explains that it's an item from the Su family, possessing special powers. The girl hands over the talisman to Jo-Yu and asks him to keep it carefully. She says this item will protect him in times of danger. She also reminds them that the Su family's work must always be paid for. Mei Mei jokingly says that no one will be able to benefit from her help for free. The next day, the show's participants wake up and begin a new day of filming. The cameras roll again, and life on the farm continues. Meanwhile, at home, Keiji is watching the program broadcast. Seeing Mei Mei on the screen, she becomes irritated and becomes even more angry. Keiji decides to launch her own stream. She tries to convince viewers that she looks better than Mei Mei and deserves more attention. However, in the comments, people support Mei Mei and criticize Keiji. The flood of negative messages quickly irritates her. Enraged, Keiji throws down her tablet and goes to complain to her father. She blames everyone around her and demands that he take revenge on the Su family. At that moment, a mysterious shaman appears. He claims he can help them take revenge and punish Mei Mei. The shaman demonstrates his power by conjuring flames around his staff. Keiji is impressed by what he sees and begins to believe he truly can help. He promises to fulfill their wishes and hints that destroying the Su family will bring him personal gain. His words betray a hidden malice. Meanwhile, at the farm, Mei Mei is calmly picking watermelons. She picks up a large fruit and places it in a basket. Suddenly, the girl trips and falls. When she gets up, she feels a strange uneasiness, as if something in the world around her has changed. The little one senses a bad omen. A sense of unease fills her heart, as if a new danger awaits them ahead. Shenfei approaches Mei Mei after her fall and offers to help. He puts on gloves and carefully checks the girl for injuries. Mei Mei calmly rises, checks her things, and tries to show that everything is fine. She takes her medicine out of her bag and adjusts her sun hat. Jo-yu notices her anxiety and tries to support her. As the girl is clearly worried about something after her strange premonition, Jo-yu suddenly quietly asks if he's in danger of dying. His words sound sincere and a little frightened, as he still remembers the conversation about the curse. Mai confidently replies that this won't happen. She reminds him of her promise to save him and says she won't let fate take his life. The boy tries to look at the situation from a different perspective. He believes that bad events sometimes lead to good results, as it was through danger that he met Mei. These words cheer the girl up a bit. She assures him that she will definitely overcome all her enemies and find a way to solve any problem. Jo-yu jokingly mentions that he got her money dirty and promises to return it clean later. This simple conversation eases the tension between the children a little. At this point, the director gathers all the participants and announces a new task. The children must sell 30 watermelons each at the market. The rules are strict. Adults are prohibited from interfering with the trading process. They are only allowed to help carry heavy baskets. Children are allowed to use any means necessary to attract customers. The only condition is that the watermelons be sold at market price. The team that sells their inventory the fastest will win. They will be allowed to continue living in the program's cozy villa. The team that performs the worst will be forced to leave the villa. This rule makes the task especially tense. Shenfei loads watermelons into a small cart. Mei sits next to her, and together they head to the market to begin trading. Along the way, they see many other vendors. The streets are filled with stalls, so competition promises to be fierce. Along the way, a police officer they know approaches them. He warns them that the city has become unsafe lately due to child abductors. Police have stepped up patrols in crowded areas, but still ask adults to keep a close eye on children. The warning is quite alarming. The children begin to discuss what they've heard. They wonder if the suspicious old man could be the rumored kidnapper. The police officer admits he doesn't know for sure. He only asks the boys not to leave with strangers and to seek help immediately if anything happens. Yo-Yo and the other children also begin to worry about Mei. They ask her to be careful and call them for help if danger arises. Jo-Yu also promises to protect her when he grows up. He says this seriously, as if he already sees himself as a strong protector. The director announces that the participants have enough time to sell their watermelons. After this, the group finally stops at the chosen street. Mei carefully examines the adults' faces, but can't discern their mood. Their lack of emotion seems strange and alarming to her. Shenfei asks where exactly the best place to start selling is. The girl points to a vacant street corner where they could set up shop. The place looks pretty empty, with almost no customers. Shenfei doubts it will sell out quickly. However, Mei isn't worried about this. She's confident she can attract customers and has come up with a way to do just that. The girl takes out a special advertising device. She plans to use it to attract the attention of passersby and lure them to her stall. The girl and Shenfei try to attract customers by loudly banging a stick on a metal plate and calling out to passersby. Their simple watermelon sales turn into a miniature performance designed to attract people's attention. Shenfei watches the girl's actions and curiously inquires about her plan. He quickly realizes that she's using noise and a cheerful mood to attract customers. Mei continues to persistently call out to people, confidently promoting her watermelons as sweet, juicy, and fresh. Gradually, her voice begins to attract the attention of passersby at the market. A man approaches their shop and asks about the price of watermelons. He then starts asking the girl questions about her age and why she is selling fruit with her brother. Mei becomes wary, sensing something suspicious in the stranger's behavior. She decides not to waste time on doubts and takes immediate action. The girl quickly creates a small talisman and discreetly sends it to the man's head, hoping to use it to expose the stranger. While the talisman is in effect, the girl calmly names the price of watermelons and offers a discount for a large purchase, pretending that nothing unusual is happening. Under the influence of the talisman, the man suddenly begins to tell the truth and admits to criminal intentions, which shocks those around him. Passersby react instantly to what they hear, and Shenfei wastes no time in knocking the man down so that he cannot escape. One of the adults quickly calls the police, while people hold the criminal down. A commotion erupts in the market, and everyone's attention turns to what's happening. The police soon arrive and handcuff the man. It turns out the man has long been wanted for similar crimes. Police officers thank the children for their courage and resourcefulness, which ultimately led to the capture of a dangerous criminal. Mei Mei takes the gratitude calmly and simply notes that she simply did what she thought was right. After the incident, the children return to trading and try to attract customers again, but the noise of the market prevents people from hearing their advertisements. The girl is thinking about how to make her ad louder and more noticeable so that it can be heard above the general market noise. An old man nearby notices their efforts and advises them to use a loudspeaker instead of the old methods of attracting attention. He explains how to use the device, after which Mei Mei thanks him and immediately begins trying out the new advertising method. Her voice carries through the market through the loudspeaker, and soon passers-by begin to pay attention to the little saleswoman. A woman in the crowd is touched by the girl's voice and asks to try the watermelon. Mei Mei readily agrees and promises she won't have to pay if the fruit isn't sweet. To prove the quality of the product, the girl easily lifts a heavy watermelon and, in one movement, splits it into several neat slices, surprising those around her. People are amazed by her strength and agility, after which they begin to actively buy watermelons, forming a queue at their small shop. However, a rude man who controls the market suddenly appears and begins threatening customers, demanding that they not buy watermelons from the girl. Fearing potential problems, people gradually disperse, realizing that they may lose the opportunity to buy food on this street. Mei Mei watches the crowd disappear and realizes her trade is being deliberately disrupted. She decides not to let this go unanswered and begins to plot her next move. The pot-bellied man approaches Mei Mei again and rudely declares that his rule applies on this street. All goods are sold only through him. Therefore, the girl won't be able to sell a single watermelon today. He confidently asserts that this order has long been established in the village, and no one has the right to violate it. According to him, every merchant is obliged to abide by its terms. Mei Mei unexpectedly replies that his father's deteriorating health is linked precisely to the bad things he does. She warns that the consequences could become even more serious. The girl's words make the man at first confused, and then he begins to shout in irritation, claiming that his father is fine and that she is talking complete nonsense. Shengfei quickly lifts Mei Mei into his arms, fearing the man might resort to violence. The pot-bellied merchant continues to curse and demands that the children leave immediately. At that moment, an elderly man appears behind the man and unexpectedly hits him with a stick. The enraged man turns around, ready to start a scene. However, seeing his own father in front of him, his expression instantly changes, and he freezes in amazement, realizing that it was the old man who stopped him. Shengfei recalls that they had met this old man before. He was the one who once thanked Mei Mei for the medicine that helped him cope with the pain. The old man angrily reproaches his son for his ingratitude and reminds him that the girl helped him when he was suffering from severe pain, and now he is trying to drive her away. The old man then approaches Mei Mei and sincerely thanks her for the medicine. He explains that after just one pill, his long-standing pain has significantly eased. Mei Mei, looking closely at the old man, notices the remnants of dark energy around him and advises the family to do more good deeds. The son suddenly realizes he didn't even know his father was ill. He quickly fetches a stool and sits the old man down, feeling intense shame. Soon the man kneels before Mei Mei and sincerely asks for forgiveness, admitting that he was wrong and should not have interfered with her trade. He offers to buy all her watermelons at a high price so that she doesn't have to stand in the sun, and also promises to treat the children to dinner at a nice restaurant. Mei Mei calmly declines the generous offer. She only cares about selling watermelons honestly to people, not accepting money out of guilt. She asks the man to publicly apologize to customers and promise that he will no longer drive people away from the market. The man complies with the request and addresses the crowd, admitting his mistake and promising not to interfere with people buying products from other merchants anymore. After this, people gradually return to the shop, surprised at how abruptly the behavior of the man who had recently threatened them had changed. Later, the man asks Mei Mei to explain her words about fate. The girl explains that it's clear from his face that money comes easily to him, but it was obtained dishonestly. She explains that his lifelines are damaged, and his troubles began after he deceived an elderly woman and underpriced her goods. Before her death, the woman cursed him, and from then on, bad karma began to destroy his health and destiny, causing constant illness and nightmares. The man, shocked, admits that he really does have a nightmare every night in which he finds himself near the grave of that very old woman. It turns out that his father secretly prayed for his son and even took on some of his misfortunes, which is why his health began to rapidly deteriorate. Realizing this, the man cannot hold back his tears and asks his father for forgiveness, promising to no longer put money above family. Mei advises him to start earning money honestly, doing good deeds, and trying to atone for his guilt before that woman. If he sincerely improves, the dark karma will gradually disappear, his father's health will improve, and a chance for a happy family will appear in his destiny. Later, the girl notices that the dark energy around the old man has noticeably weakened, and she realizes that the man has truly decided to change his life. When it's all over, Mei takes the bottle of elixir out of her bag and notices that there's more liquid in it again. She understands that every saved or changed heart gradually fills the elixir that will one day help wake up her parents. At that moment, an elderly woman runs up to her, falls to her knees, and asks for help. Her grandson was kidnapped by unknown persons 2 days ago. Mei asks to see a photo of the boy so she can try to find him. She notices a familiar dark energy around the woman. This energy resembles traces that the girl has seen before, and she begins to suspect that the abduction is connected to the same mysterious person operating in the area. Alarming news is spreading through the village. An unknown man has entered the settlement and kidnapped a boy. Residents have already reported the incident to the police, and rescue teams have begun combing the mountains. Mei, just off the bus, overhears people talking about a kidnapping. Hearing the boy's name, she instantly becomes wary and realizes her premonition of trouble was no accident. She remembers the strange feeling she had earlier and realizes that it was then that the bad omen associated with this event began to manifest itself. With tears in her eyes, Mei begs to join the search. She explains that she wants to find Li Gao's son and stop the people behind the kidnappings. She also remembers the elderly woman's story about her missing grandson and begins to suspect that the cases may be connected. Shenfei and the others decide to support her and go along with her. They realize the girl possesses special abilities that could help them in their search. The adults are hesitant at first, but the team insists on participating and is even willing to sign documents confirming that they take responsibility for any potential risks. They are eventually allowed to help, but are asked to exercise caution and not interfere with police work during the search operation. The group first goes to the police station, where they discuss the details of what is happening and coordinate further actions with officers. To make it easier to move around in the heat and mountainous terrain, Mei distributes special talismans to everyone that help the body stay cool. Shengfei quickly feels the effect of the talisman and is surprised how the sweltering heat instantly disappears, making movement much easier. However, Mei explains that one of their companions does not need the talisman because, by his fate, he has a fiery nature and his body always remains cold. Joki suggests distributing the remaining talismans to the police officers, who will also be participating in the search operation in difficult conditions. Mei takes out a few more talismans, after which the police officers give everyone involved radios to use for communication during the search. The group receives instructions and is introduced to one of the officers, who will coordinate their actions on site. After preparation, the team returns to the village to meet with rescuers and begin combing the surrounding mountains. Meanwhile, the missing boy's father is deeply distressed by what happened and blames himself for it, believing that he could have prevented the disaster. Those around him try to calm him down and assure him that the police are already actively working and will do everything possible to find the child. Meanwhile, Shengfei begins to piece together the events and gradually realizes that the kidnapping may be part of a much more complex plan. Some of the team also come to the conclusion that there may be a person behind what is happening who has long been hiding in the shadows and is acting through the destinies of others. When everyone is ready, Mei releases a small spirit bird that is supposed to help find traces of the missing child. The bird takes off into the air and begins to lead them towards the mountains, where the kidnappers are probably hiding. Meanwhile, in one of the hidden rooms nearby, an unknown man in a black cap is watching what is happening. He calmly states that everything is already prepared and the special formation is almost complete. According to his plan, this scheme should allow him to take away the luck and vitality of famous people, leaving them completely devastated. An unknown man sits at the entrance to the cave and lazily smokes a cigarette, unaware that Mei, Shengfei, Zhouyu, and Zhouqi are watching him nearby. Mei confirms that a strange energy is felt in this particular cave. To sneak inside unnoticed, she hands out invisibility talismans to her friends. Having attached the talismans, the group becomes invisible and cautiously passes the guard. The man doesn't even notice them and continues grumbling about having to do the dirty work alone. As they move through the cave, they hear the sound of wings and notice bats circling beneath the vaulted ceiling. The atmosphere inside feels uneasy and abandoned. Soon, a rockfall blocks the way. Shengfei already thinks there's no way forward, but Mei carefully examines the wall. She finds a hidden mechanism and presses an inconspicuous button. The stones slide apart, revealing a secret passage deep underground. A staircase appears before them, leading to a hidden chamber. Shengfei is amazed that such secret structures still exist in the modern world. As they descend, they begin to realize that the cave is being used as a hideout. The question arises, why did the kidnappers bring the children here? A rough voice comes from the next room. One of the men is threatening someone with punishment and demanding obedience. Mei peers cautiously inside and suddenly recognizes a familiar voice. It turns out that Kenji is among the kidnappers. Kenji yells at one of the boys, trying to get him to obey. There are other kidnapped children in the room, standing off to the side, frightened. Suddenly, the girl raises her hand, about to hit the child. Realizing there's no time to waste, Mei lunges forward. She intercepts the girl's blow and strikes back, surprised by her opponent's unexpected strength. The girl senses something is clearly wrong here. Kenji is taken aback by the sudden interruption, but immediately realizes who stands before her. She calls out to her mentor, Master Fu. The shaman comes into the room and begins to examine the surroundings, trying to understand what happened and whether a stranger has appeared. He calmly states that they have more important things to do and orders them not to panic and to continue with the plan. The shaman mentions powerful artifacts and his teacher's secret mission. He claims they even kidnap children for this purpose. He also talks about the legendary Zombie King and the ancient powers that their organization is trying to awaken to gain incredible power. Among the conversations, the name of the wolf demon Bianca comes up, a powerful creature that, in their opinion, can defeat Mei. Zhou Qi, remaining invisible, manages to record the entire conversation on his phone, realizing that this is important evidence of the crimes. As the villains leave, the group quickly removes the invisibility ward and rushes to the children to free them. Mei takes out a talisman doll from her bag and tries to calm the frightened children, but at first they only cry harder from fear. Then Zhouyu suddenly starts talking in a cheerful toy hero voice, introducing himself as the superhero Woody and trying to distract the children. His words gradually calm the children. They begin to listen and ask questions, hoping that they will truly be rescued. Mei gives each child special pills that help them calm down and regain their strength after the experience. After this, she gives everyone invisibility talismans and asks them to move quietly so that the kidnappers don't notice anything. While the children turn invisible and prepare to leave, Kenji returns to the cave with a huge white wolf named Bianca. She commands the beast to use its keen sense of smell and find Mei. The wolf begins sniffing and slowly moves toward the shelter. The girl realizes the wolf is almost on their trail. If it finds them, the entire rescue operation could be ruined. The white wolf, Bianca, slowly approaches the shelter, confidently following the scent. His muzzle is very close to Mei's, and the beast sniffs her braid intently. Suddenly, the wolf behaves completely differently than expected. Instead of attacking, he begins to gently rub against the girl, like a friendly dog. Mei barely suppresses a smile, realizing the beast doesn't consider her an enemy at all. A moment later, Bianca calmly turns around and returns to Kenji. The girl becomes enraged, accusing the wolf of disobedience. She yells at the animal and tries to force it to continue searching for Mei. The irritated wolf growls and suddenly throws the girl to the ground, demonstrating that he does not intend to obey her orders. As conflict flares between them, Mei realizes a chance to save the children has arisen. She signals her friends to leave immediately. The children quickly leave the cave, and the entire group hurries outside. Meanwhile, police officers are already gathering at the foot of the mountain. When Mei and the rescued children run out of the cave, the officers and rescuers are relieved to realize that the kidnapped children are alive. The police thank Shengfei, Zhou Qi, and the others for their courage, which allowed them to save the children without serious consequences. Zhou Qi hands over to the officers a recording of the shaman and Kenji's conversation, made in the cave. This data becomes crucial evidence for the investigation. Mei informs her friends that she has unfinished business inside the cave. She asks them to take care of the children and not follow her. Shengfei is worried, but still agrees, realizing that the girl intends to deal with the criminals to the end. Returning to the cave, Mei finds Kenji continuing to pursue the wolf, blaming him for ruining her plan. They reach the shaman, and an argument ensues. Kenji assures him that Mei has already infiltrated the shelter. At first, the shaman does not believe her words, but soon activates the talisman and creates a powerful flame around her, trying to reveal the presence of an outsider. The fire illuminates the room, and Mei can no longer hide. The shaman triumphs, believing he has caught her. He tries to destroy the girl with a fire spell that his master supposedly gave him. However, Mei calmly calls for rain, and a stream of water floods the room, instantly extinguishing the flames. The shaman is shocked by how easily his technique was destroyed. Mei explains that his talisman is merely a weak counterfeit. The enraged shaman orders Bianca to attack the girl, but the wolf unexpectedly turns against him. Bianca pins the shaman to the ground, completely ignoring his orders, as if realizing who truly deserves punishment. Meanwhile, Kenji furiously attacks Mei, confident that her new power will allow her to defeat the girl. Mei creates a protective barrier, and her opponent's attack is useless. Her claws break on the defense. Without wasting any time, Mei lands a precise blow, and Kenji falls to the floor, unable to resist. The girl ties her up with ropes, deciding to leave her alive so she can deal with her crimes later. The shaman, still pinned down by the wolf, desperately tries to regain control of the situation and again orders Bianca to attack. But the wolf completely ignores his words and sits calmly next to him, as if he has finally refused to obey. Realizing that all is lost, the shaman panics and tries to call for help and orders his people to come to him immediately. Mei calmly approaches him and declares that she now knows the truth. He is the one behind this entire dark scheme. Mei quickly neutralizes the shaman. With a precise move, she knocks him down and ties him up, completely rendering him unable to resist. Satisfied that he is no longer a threat, the girl continues down the underground passage. A massive door appears before her. Mei senses that something important is hidden behind it, but she can't find a mechanism that could open the entrance. Realizing there's no time to search, she decides to resort to force. The girl breaks through the wall and enters the hidden room. The noise attracts the attention of a woman inside. She turns around abruptly and asks in surprise how the child managed to get into this place. As Mei scans the room, she notices a little girl in the corner. The child sits chained, surrounded by talismans and strange magical seals. The girl demands an explanation and asks why the woman needed to keep and use the child. She calmly replies that the girl has already become a zombie creature, and she is only improving her power to use in the future fight. The woman introduces herself as Allison and attempts to be friendly, extending her hand in greeting. However, Mei notices a strange dark aura and hidden energy circuits around her hand. The girl pretends to accept the gesture, but at the last moment breaks the magic chain and declares that she understands Allison's true intentions. Having lost some of her power, Allison becomes enraged and immediately commands the spirits to attack Mei. Red energy fills the room. The little one instantly creates a protective talisman and a trap that neutralizes the summoned spirits. Allison can't believe her technique was so easily stopped. In desperation, she calls on her last ally, the wolf Bianca, and orders him to attack the girl. The predator rushes forward, but at the last moment stops next to Mei and calmly lies down at her feet. To Allison's surprise, the wolf allows the girl to pet him and even joyfully licks her face, as if he were an old friend. Mei laughs and says Bianca belongs to her family. For her, the encounter with the wolf is unexpected, but heartwarming. Realizing that the situation is getting out of control, Allison tries to escape and find her mentor, but a protective barrier blocks the exit. At that moment, the boy who had previously been under the influence of dark forces appears. Mei greets him and tries to talk calmly. Allison accuses the boy of inaction and claims that he should have stopped the zombies and everything that was happening. The boy begins to cry, admitting that he had been under control for a long time and was unable to resist. Mei gently reassures him and explains that she already knows the truth. Allison was behind what happened. The enraged woman decides to use one last trick. She channels a stream of energy and attempts to enter the boy's mind. Under her control, the child begins to attack Mei, but the girl quickly realizes that this is just a low-level illusion. She places the talisman on his forehead and breaks the spell, freeing the boy from its control. After this, Mei takes out a small wooden sword from her bag, a spiritual tool for breaking magical connections. Realizing she has lost, Allison falls to the floor and begins begging for mercy, claiming that she has spent years developing her power. But Mei destroys her technique with a single movement. The woman's energy dissipates, and her influence vanishes completely. Having finished, the girl calmly dusts off her hands and addresses the rescued children. She tells them that they are now free and can go wherever they want, because no one will keep them here anymore. The children are still reeling from the experience. One of the boys looks at her hesitantly and begins to speak quietly. Mei notices his hesitation and asks what exactly he plans to do next. Mei gently soothes the children and touches their foreheads, using spiritual energy to finally remove the remnants of the dark spells their captors had held them under. The atmosphere around them gradually becomes calmer. The boy introduces himself as Caster Yan and names his younger sister Dasha. He sincerely thanks Mei for saving him and says he wants to serve her as a token of his gratitude. Dasha supports her brother and also promises to serve the girl, believing that this way she can repay him for saving her and protecting her. Mei refuses immediately. She explains that no one belongs to anyone and that everyone is free now, so they don't need to become anyone's servant. The children still continue to insist, kneeling down and asking to be allowed to stay nearby, at least as helpers. Mei picks them up and says that she must discuss this with Shengfei first, since she is only a guest in his house. At that moment, Shengfei suddenly appears nearby and overhears part of the conversation. He calmly asks what they are talking about. Mei explains the situation to him and says that she wants to take the children with her and teach them the correct path of spiritual development. Shengfei agrees without hesitation. He says their house is big enough and there's room for everyone. However, Mei notices that the children still look suspicious due to the strange markings on their faces that their captors marked them with. She takes the talismans from her bag and places them on the children's faces. The spell instantly erases the paint, returning them to their normal appearance. The girl then turns to Bianca and asks her to change shape as well. The wolf obediently transforms into a small white dog. After this, Mei returns to the ritual site and decides to destroy the blood pool that was used to create zombies. She sets fire to the source of dark energy so that no one else can use it for dangerous experiments. She leaves the tied-up shaman and Allison aside, deciding to hand them over to the police, along with all the evidence. As the group leaves the cave, Mei hands the officers special yellow talismans that can force criminals to tell the truth. The police thank her for her help and discuss among themselves how unusual this operation was. Some of them are surprised how a child could play such an important role in solving the crime. At that moment, a small spirit connected to Carmel appears next to Mei. He thanks her for finally bringing justice to the guilty. After a short farewell, the spirit slowly rises upward and disappears, as if freed from a long wait. Bianca, in the form of a small dog, asks to be picked up, and Mei takes her, realizing that it is finally over. After making sure the children are safe, she invites everyone to return home and relax after a long day. The next morning, Mei wakes to a quiet growl next to her. Opening her eyes, she finds Bianca sitting right on her chest, looking at her with displeasure. The girl laughs and scratches the dog behind the ear, trying to calm her down and understand what she is so unhappy about. At this moment, the little chicks they'd recently bought for the yard began running around the room. Bianca instantly turned her attention to them and began excitedly chasing the chicks. Mei tries to stop her in a whisper, reminding her that Shengfei is still asleep. But the dog suddenly jumps onto the bed and lands right on Shengfei's face. He suddenly wakes up, sees a dog's face in front of him, and, in panic, declares that a real beast has attacked him. Mei Mei apologizes to Shengfei for the mess and quickly removes the dog from his face, worried that the noise woke him up too early and ruined his morning. Shengfei calmly reassures her and says that he was going to wake up anyway, so it's not her fault, and the morning chaos even amused him a little. The girl gathers Bianca and the little chicks in front of her and announces in a stern tone that she will now begin to count to 3, and everyone must sit quietly in front of her. She only has time to say 2 numbers before the dog and the chicks sit down in a disciplined manner opposite her, as if understanding the seriousness of her tone. Mei Mei decides to punish Bianca for starting the mess and invites the chickens to choose a small punishment for her to restore justice. After a short argument, the girl declares a truce and reminds everyone that they can no longer quarrel and chase each other around the room. After making sure everyone is calm, she pats the animals on the head and praises them for their good behavior. Shengfei watches this scene with a smile and suggests that Mei Mei take a photo to send to her family, who have long missed her. The girl happily agrees, and they take a selfie together, with the dog and little chicks posing next to them. The photo is immediately sent to relatives, after which a lively discussion and humorous comments begin in the family chat. Relatives notice that Mei Mei seems to have lost a little weight and are interested in how her unusual adventure is going. To tease her relatives even more, Shengfei suggests taking a few more photos from different angles. Mei Mei suddenly suggests that they arrange a video call instead so that everyone can see each other and talk face to face. The connection is quickly established, and familiar faces appear on the screen, joyfully greeting the girl. Mei Mei waves at the camera and says that she really misses everyone at home, and her family responds in kind. During the conversation, someone from the family jokingly asks if Shengfei is behaving well and is not causing trouble. Mei Mei replies that he may be naughty sometimes, but overall he behaves well, so he doesn't need any punishment. A man named Romeo suddenly joins the conversation, and Mei Mei immediately asks if he received the protective amulet she gave him. Romeo assures that he has the amulet and that he carefully keeps it, but he treats the girl's words with slight skepticism. Mei Mei carefully examines his room through the camera and notices that there is a heavy and unpleasant energy there. She advises him to change his place of residence as soon as possible, because there is a bad influence in his current apartment. Romeo doesn't take the warning seriously and assumes the problem might simply be closed curtains and poor lighting. Mei Mei notices the painting behind him and says that it is hanging in the wrong place and is increasing the negative energy in the room. Despite her words, the man continues to take this matter lightly, which causes discontent among some family members. One of his older relatives sternly reminds Romeo of his manners and demands that he at least place the amulet next to his bed. Under pressure from his family, he reluctantly agrees and promises to place the amulet on the nightstand. After the conversation, the relatives begin to discuss Mei Mei's unexpected popularity and report that her videos are rapidly gaining views. It turns out that the girl has already gained millions of new fans who are closely following her adventures. Mei Mei is genuinely happy about this news and decides to continue recording everything that happens so that her parents can wake up sooner. At that moment, 2 familiar boys, Joyu and Joki, enter the room, a little confused by the unexpected request. Joyu explains that his mother wants to meet Mei Mei in person and talk to her. The girl looks at him in surprise, not understanding why she suddenly became such an important person that adults want to meet. Mei Mei takes the phone from Joyu and looks at the screen with a bit of surprise, where her mother appears. The girl doesn't understand why the boy himself is standing next to her, flushed and visibly embarrassed. The woman introduces herself as Andre and immediately admits that she's been following Mei Mei's adventures for a long time and considers herself a big fan. Her voice sounds warm and sincere. She invites Mei Mei to come to their home after filming ends to have a quiet chat and spend time together. At this point, Joyu became even more embarrassed, and his mother watched her son's reaction with a smile and mentally joked that without her help, he definitely wouldn't be able to do anything. The conversation is suddenly interrupted by the director, who enters the room with a businesslike expression and reminds everyone that filming is ongoing. He asks all participants to hand over their phones so that no one gets distracted or breaks the show's rules. Mei Mei and Joyu's mother quickly say goodbye, realizing there's no time for more conversation. They promise to meet again and have a calm conversation in person when filming ends. When Mei Mei and Shengfei step outside, they notice a man with a fairly large group of people already gathered around him. They are all standing slightly apart, clearly waiting for someone. The man explains that these are the families of children who were recently rescued. Having heard about Mei Mei, they came specifically to personally thank the little girl for her courage and help. People express sincere gratitude, and one elderly woman can barely hold back tears. She recalls how, in despair, she thought she would never see her child alive again. The villagers put together a small gift for Mei Mei, a basket of fruit, sweets, and simple village treats. For them, it's a symbol of sincere appreciation and respect. Mei Mei is a little embarrassed by all the attention and quietly says she only did what she had to. She adds that she could have been in the same place as the abducted children. In order not to upset the balance of fate and not to accept too much gratitude, the girl carefully takes only a few fruits from the basket, leaving the rest for the people. The villagers rejoice at even this gesture. For them, the most important thing was simply to express their gratitude to the person who helped bring their children back. After this, the film crew gathers all the participants again to announce the rules for the next stage of the show. The crowd gradually disperses, and the atmosphere returns to a work-like atmosphere. The director explains that now the participants will have to independently help the villagers and complete various tasks related to the daily life of the locals. Villagers will issue special kindness cards to those who demonstrate sincere assistance, hard work, and respect for others. Those participants who collect the most of these cards will have a chance to be included in a special project to create future industry stars. The project is organized by Sweet Pea Entertainment, which promises winners training, resources, and comprehensive support for their future careers. Some of the adult participants are surprised, having barely heard of the company before. Mei Mei suddenly realizes the name refers to her relative's family business and is surprised to see everyone looking at her. The director continues to explain the rules. Participants must help the village, do work, and win the sympathy of the locals. The winner will be able to receive the main prize and even transfer it to someone else at their discretion. Mei Mei remembers the children she saved and invites them to join the game and help people to accumulate good karma. The children happily agree and promise to do good deeds to thank her for saving them. The game begins, and the participants disperse throughout the village, taking on various tasks from the local residents. Mei Mei and Shengfei are tasked with climbing the mountains and collecting rare mushrooms for an elderly woman. They set off into the forest with the basket, where they soon find a multitude of mushrooms among the damp grass and tree roots. Mei Mei spots a squirrel and carefully examines the surrounding plants, distinguishing between edible and dangerous varieties. When Shengfei reaches out to pick a bright, eye-catching mushroom, Mei Mei instantly stops him with her small hand. Calmly but seriously, she explains that such beautiful mushrooms are often poisonous and can cause harm, so they should not be touched. Gradually, their basket fills with collected mushrooms and herbs. When they're done, Mei Mei removes her protective mask, exhales with a slight sense of satisfaction, and surveys the results of their careful harvest with a satisfied smile. Looking up at the sky through the treetops, she suddenly feels a strange uneasiness. The girl listens to her senses and realizes that very soon a heavy, heavy rain will break out over the mountains. Shengfei looks up in surprise as the sky remains almost clear, with only a few clouds drifting slowly in the distance. However, Mei Mei insists they must return immediately. They quicken their pace and begin to descend the mountain trail more quickly. As they advance, the sky indeed begins to darken, and heavy dark clouds gradually gather over the peaks. Mei Mei senses something is wrong. The weather has changed too abruptly and unnaturally, as if some force has interfered with the normal course of nature. As they hurry through the dense forest, the girl feels a deepening sense of unease. Deep down, she understands that this sudden storm may be hiding more than just rain, but something far more dangerous and incomprehensible. Did you like the recap? Want a continuation? Write Part 2 in the comments.